Hello, today I'm talking with Thierry De Pauw from the land of chocolates. It's the longest interview to date. We talked about so many things. I'll just pick two. Coping mechanisms for introverts. Realizing that he learned about theory of constraints at university, yet only discovered its power later. I'm Yves Hanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button, because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it. Hello everyone, and hello Thierry.
Hello.
And for the people, well, before when I start, like I said when we're talking, what I want to show a little bit and why it's okay. So I want to show where we are, and I am in Ghent, actually in Drongen, and Thierry is in Ghent, and as you can see, this is actually pretty close to each other, and it also means that we're in the same time zone. So that what time is it? It's almost 8:45, something in the evening. So that is how we roll tonight. And Thierry, for the few people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about who are you?
You mean for the many people that don't know me?
Depends on who's listening. If we're sending it out to friends and family, most of them know. Depends a little bit.
So, I'm Thierry from Belgium, land of chocolates. On the side, I help organizations improve their IT delivery in order to reduce stress, fatigue, and burnout. And this has an interesting corollary. Damn it. Corollary. So it also increases quality, and it and improves delivery speed. Now I say on the side because this is not really my main job. So my main job is I'm an IT engineer at a fintech, where I manage production, and I'm responsible for security and compliance. And then from time to time, I'm asked to run technology due diligences to analyze the tech capabilities of organizations for investors who wants to invest. And yeah, it's quite interesting. You discover quite some things. And
I was at the CTO club yesterday, a small event where there was actually
I know
an investor talking about X3, that due diligence, and people like, I assume you, that were doing that kind of role. So it was a really interesting evening. So
but I don't do that alone, and it's not really my business. So I do that with someone from the UK, and it's his business, and it's going that well that he can't run it on its own anymore. And so he reached out to people, and so he came to me. So approximately once a month, I do that, but it's quite heavy. It's like. It's every time I'm like, ooh, shall I do it again? And then I do it, and then I'm happy when it's done. Well, especially when you deliver the report, like, wow, we've done it again. But when you are writing the report, it's like, it's quite long days because it's writing against time.
And it's also, you know that you're writing about people, so I think that puts some extra stress.
Yeah, sometimes I feel bad because, it's sometimes it's not positive, like, but we try to make it that it's the company that has been analyzed, that they have something, that they have something useful. So we formulate recommendations like, we advise you do this, or we advise that, and we rank those recommendations. Like this is going to be difficult, but you will have big value in return. This is a quick win. This shouldn't be that complicated to do, and these kind of things. Usually they appreciate it. Sometimes we have.
From the conversations we heard yesterday, it looks for me that these kind of reports are interesting. Well, typically the kind of people that were there yesterday is smaller startups or a little bit bigger, and yeah, they usually don't have this kind of feedback. So for them, it's useful to have some outside view that tells them like, look, from the outside, this looks. So yeah, I understand the stress that it brings because there is at multiple levels, I think, at multiple ways of looking at it, but at the same time, the value it brings for these kind of people to have an outside view, I think it's useful for many people. So
yeah, exactly. It's
So we dived right into that already, Thierry. That was interesting because it's a part that I didn't know about you. Well, actually, I saw it on LinkedIn when I was preparing for today, but I didn't know that we were going to dive into that directly. So that's already an interesting part. But yeah, I think it's wonderful, these kind of things, especially because what I know about you is that you have the technical background, but like you said, you care about people and the burnout and everything, so that you care about people at multiple levels, and that is important also. Because both of us, I think, we know, or at least we agree, that if people are too much under stress and there's problems at other sides, you will see it in the code and you will see it in the output.
Exactly. Exactly. It's one of the reasons why I started to. So I used to say, I try to improve quality and speed, but no, actually, what I'm trying to do is reducing stress for people, and as a side effect, it increases quality and reduces cost and improves speed and.
Yeah, but it's interesting because typically when people talk about we want to improve quality and we want to do this and that, then they put so much stress on certain parts of it, but actually in the end it's not helping, and they're trying to cut corners to go faster, and actually it has the opposite effect, and then you have the stress, and then you have everything else. Where if you do things right, and I'm not saying over engineering, but just
No.
the right amount and the right number of quality that you need. And if you have all these processes in place, actually, it reduces stress at multiple levels in the organization. So
exactly.
That's the wonderful thing. Okay, we jumped into that. So let's start with that first question. What is something that people usually don't know about who you are? Sorry, about something that has influenced you. Sorry, I went too quick.
So I'm shy and I'm introvert, and by times I can be arrogant, and the arrogance is a coping mechanism because I'm shy and introvert, especially when
when you say that you're arrogant, how does that show up, or how do you think it shows up?
I'm quite opinionated, and I don't mind saying my opinion, and I can say it. I think of myself. I can say it in a harsh way or in a very positive way. But it's usually with people that are patronizing, and people tend to easily patronize me because I'm shy and introvert, and it's quite. I'm an easy target.
Then it's so like your coping mechanism is then to push back with.
Yeah, it's quite automatic. Over the years, it became quite automatic. So, well, sometimes I feel bad.
When you say over the years, is that something that also something that you learned in high school or something like that, or is that just in?
No, it's really like adulthood, late adulthood. It took me quite some years to feel comfortable with who I am. Also with being shy and being introvert, and also seeing that as well, actually, it's not negative. It's not a. Well, for me, it's well, I've turned it into a talent because, well, it helped me being a good listener. So it's not that difficult for me to listen to people and being empathic and understanding and.
Yeah, because people, what you say, when people might look at you as an easy target because you're introvert and you're shy, but introverts also means that you actually first listen, you first think before you start talking, and the big mouths, the extroverts might think, oh, we can talk over it, and we might have a better idea, but yeah, they need to talk to think, while you might be sitting shy in your corner thinking your way, but then all of a sudden you have maybe the better idea because you took the time to think.
Yeah,
So that's definitely is a quality that yeah, we live in a world where extroverts see I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but the extrovert people get so much more attention, and they get so much more looked at as being the smart people or the better way, because hey, look, this is a person that can talk and blah blah blah, but nah, thinking is also important. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, we are in a minority, so it's about 25% that is introvert. So it doesn't help, but well, it is what it is.
And when you say it's a coping mechanism, and when you say I've learned some of these things in adulthood, did you get any help with that? Did you learn to deal with?
No, I did that quite on my own. Well, I got also quite a lot of return from the community that reassured me that I'm okay. That I have the knowledge, that I am. Also, people can relate to who I am, which is nice to hear. And so my confidence grew over time.
Yeah, because when people talk about introvert and shy, sometimes people link it to being completely unsure. And indeed, if loudmouths talk over you, especially in school, I really had that feeling sometimes, like it breaks on your confidence. But once you kind of find, or at least I kind of found my way, and that this is where I am and this is my self-worth, it's no longer linked to talking or not talking. That's It's not always easy depending on who's on the other side, I would say. But yeah, these things are completely unrelated. It's not because you don't talk that you don't have a high self-esteem, or vice versa. I've seen very big. I'm actually coaching some extroverts that are really, really very unsecure, and this is why they keep on talking, because they don't want to listen to themselves or think for themselves. So basically, they want to keep talking. And I say that with respect for them, because they shared it with me, and it's like, okay, I'm looking for that. And people don't always see that, just like they don't see that you might have some confidence because you're sitting in a corner being shy and introvert. But that's, yeah, for me there is no link, but somehow our society makes that link, or
it's unfortunately, that's true.
But thanks for sharing, because and I know this is not the first time that you share you have written some blog post and you have been talking about some of that already.
Yeah,
but you
I don't mind. I don't
well,
mind saying it anymore, and it's my usual intro nowadays before speaking. And
does that help you?
Yeah, it helped me. Yeah, it's like, so I did it when I started speaking, like, as just to reassure the public, like, yeah, so if I mess up, it's okay, they know. then I stopped at some point because, well, after a couple of years, people don't believe you, or I thought they don't believe me. And then last year, I was at Agile on the beach, and one keynote, wonderful woman, she started her keynote by saying, well, I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm an introvert. And I was like, look at that.
I'm not alone.
Yeah. And well, I did it at Agile on the beach. So before starting, I did it again. And since then, I'm doing it every single time. And it's like it removes all the stress. Like, oof. I've said it, and I can start.
Yeah, finding your way, what releases your stress, is important for everyone. And I can imagine. Well, we know each other for quite some while. I know that for some moments before your talk, you can feel really stressful, even if you've done it multiple times. And I think, well, I think I've shared it with you already. For me, I'm also stressed before talks. I'm stressed at a different level than you, I think. But the moments that I'm completely not stressed, that's the moment I should start worrying, because that means, yeah, I don't care about that talk one way or another. So yeah, every conversation, every job interview or whatever, even retros before, I might feel stressed at some level. It's yeah, I don't know how to call it. Is it pink stress, white stress? I don't know. It's not red. I'm not in the red zone for these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
But there still is some stress. So even for conversations like today, that still stays stressful. For me, the stress is a little bit more on the technical side, because yeah, there's always technology that can go wrong. But even there, yeah, sometimes with people I have never met, then it's a little bit like, okay, can I make these conversations going? And I think I see something similar with you before your talks, that yeah, you feel like, okay, will I get the connection with the audience, and some of the things that you shared before, that yeah, it can be stressful. And I want to go a little bit deeper on the arrogant side. Is there, you said it's a coping mechanism. Can you, or do you want to share some of the situations where that helped you, or is that something you prefer to stay out of?
Um, yeah, it's more in the well, it's professional finance side of things, like dealing with bank. So I have this love hate relation with the finance industry. So when I was a young adult, I remember we needed a loan, and the agency director was especially like patronizing, and well, nowadays situation has changed. I'm in a different situation, and well, I'm a bit like well, not paying back, but returning the favor to them. Like, well, look, I know my thing. I know your business, and well, one day I literally talked them under the table, like, because I just knew everything. And they were supposed to advise me, and in the end, I was saying, yeah, no, we can't do this because of this and this and this. Yeah, this seems interesting, but have you thought about that and that and that and that? Well, I found this quite funny.
It's
Well,
sad at the same time, because they, like you say, you're basically, you need to pay them to, they have to advise you. They should be the experts.
yeah, but it
Uh,
confirmed that I have knowledge, and that I know my stuff, and that I know my business, and I was quite proud. So
I so see the situation before you, me, indeed, when you start a business, or even before, if you if you need money for, because like, yeah, every time in personal life at some point you need some money to for buying a house or whatever. I still remember first conversation with a bank, and I'm no longer with that bank, but indeed it felt so like I felt so little when I went out. I was like, come on. And I wasn't even asking for a lot of money.
Yeah.
And but yeah, for me it was a lot of money, but for them it was peanuts. And it's, if I look back at that situation, yeah, I really felt really small. And they, if I look back at some of their advice was really good, but other advice was not good, and other advice might have been good, but they didn't explain it correctly to me, so I misunderstood it, which is also not good because, um, yeah, for me, the what I see when people are new, and for when you ask for money for the very first time, I don't know what I don't know, so I don't know how to ask good questions to experts.
Yeah.
And like what you say, at some point you start to learn because of mistakes, because of talking to other people around us, and we start to collect data, and all of a sudden we become much more knowledgeable than the experts, or we ask the right questions. And yeah, I remember a similar kind of conversation where I needed to ask money like 10 or 20 years later, and I talked to 4 different banks, and every time I talked to one, I learned something that helped me for the others. And in the end, that was so much more useful because, yeah, and one of them tried to patronize me, and yeah, I immediately wrote down, okay, this is not going to work. I'm not going to work with this person, but
Yeah.
I'm going to stay in this conversation to learn, to see what I can do with others.
Yeah.
I so much relate to you about that love-hate relationship with a bank. We need them. um, First of all, we need money at some point. And if you're an independent, you have your company, at some point you have some extra money, because in Belgium we don't get any pensions, so we need to have some money somehow, somewhere. But that also means that, yeah, I'm not going to stick it under my pillow. I need a bank to put some part of the money there. But so there is definitely, we need them. At the same time, sometimes they treat us in unrespectful ways.
Yeah.
And finding a good banker is really important. And it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And the other situation I had recently was, a negotiation with a customer. So they wanted me to help them for IT delivery, and then 2 weeks before starting the first workshop, suddenly I receive an email from someone from the legal team. Oh yeah, we need you to sign an NDA, and it starts by saying, yeah, and this is non-negotiable. So when I hear this, it's already red flags. So I start reading the NDA, and the first paragraph was like, yeah, you may not tell about your relation with us. And I'm like, yeah, well, we are already in breach because I've told it to people. So I tell them that, well, we are already in breach. So what do we do about this? And the guy, the person was so patronizing. I completely, shut myself off. And then finally I said to them, well, I guess I cannot help you. And that was it.
But and at some point, like you say, you need to protect yourself, and if you want to, yeah, to help people to feel much more at ease and release stress. Yeah, it doesn't help if they start to put stress on you. Especially being a small entrepreneur, in a sense that I've seen large companies thinking, oh, we can overpower with legal blah blah. And it's like, yeah, but I'm a single entrepreneur, and I choose what I work for and who I work for. So eh, everything I sign is negotiable, because I mean, I decide if I sign it or not, and I decide if I want to keep working with you. So that's interesting.
Indeed.
uh, and I
But they,
understand. I understand, of course, they want to keep some kind of things private, and of course, if
Yeah,
they're
okay.
looking into things, I understand the need, but it starts from a point of view where we are equals, and if you start patronizing me,
Yeah.
I don't feel equal, and how will you do it? Because that's interesting. If they, well, I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel that if you start already patronizing before we started to work, if at the moment that you still need to convince me that I want to do that work, how will it work once we've signed the contract? Will you be even worse? Which is the
Yeah.
case in many cases. So at least that's the experience I have. I don't know what's your experience.
Well, I made the same observation. I was like, so is this a sign of how the power structures are inside your organization? Or how do I need to see this? Now, it's a bit sad because the person with who I had contact and with who I should collaborate was really lovely, and I guess there would not be any problems. But well, it's just yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, you're going to help them. But if they are under stress for management and others that behave similar to this person, and maybe that legal person was just a one-off, and you just
Yeah.
had a bad day, because that might happen as well. That could be. Uh, but it's not helping us at this moment. But thanks for sharing some of these examples, because this is really it's showing a lot on how you work and how you for yourself set boundaries, which is important in the work that you do. If you can't set boundaries for yourself, you can't help other people to set boundaries, I would assume.
Yeah, I've never looked at that way, but yeah, you could say it that way. Yeah.
Well, let's go to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing, and this is already interesting because you talked about multiple things that you're doing, but do you know if there was anything inside your path when you were young that you were destined to do?
Well, I guess I would have done what I've studied for. So I don't have a computer science degree.
Oh,
And for a long time, I felt that I missed something, and that I was not good enough because of that. Because I didn't have compiler theory and those kind of things. Until someone said to me, "Thierry, you're okay. You know enough." Okay. Uh, so
and maybe it helps you, because how many times do people actually have to write the compiler?
yeah, exactly. But yeah,
But it puts stress on you at the start of your career, at least. That's what I'm hearing.
yeah. Well, so I'm electromechanical engineer with a minor in production management, but factory production management, and I've started working in that sector. My very first job was actually making sure that a factory was built, which was a crazy thing. Well, I was far too young to do that.
And
And I
what is far too young? 24, something
was
like that? Is
24 something. Yeah, I was 24. Like, yeah, I was working crazy hours. And yeah, well, I was kind of misused because I really needed the job, because of my personal situation. Well, I needed the money, and well,
And
eventually I
being in charge of creating a of a factory, I can imagine that that's hard as well.
yeah also yeah, but the people were kind with me. The boss was an asshole, but the contractors were kind with me, but yeah, things went wrong. Like a crane inside the factory, depositing like a heavy thing, and then you have the effect, like the crane smashing against the ceiling, like oh gosh, or then the floor that starts to crack at certain places because it was because of the heat of the engine that was on the floor, and was like, and then the people that placed the floor said like, yeah, but you didn't told there would be a very wrong thing on the floor. Well, yeah. These
So
kind
you
of
learn about acceptance criteria right from your first job.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, after 4 months as I left, it wasn't a healthy situation. Absolutely not.
And
then
do you know what happened later to that
no, I didn't
factory?
follow up. I didn't follow
You
up.
were
But, well, the job was afterwards. Once the factory would have been built, I was supposed to manage the production, and I was looking forward to do that. But then I went working for a small company, like 50 people, where we were 2 engineers, and the engineer that hired me was working there for 10 years, and he was really a mentor for me. He liked me, and well, so we shared an office, and well, it was nice, and we did everything, like building the machines that were necessary, developing the software, doing research, well, everything that was technical. Also, so it was a company that produced membrane keyboards, like industrial keyboards that is used for machines. And so from time to time, we also did the drawings, like on the CAD systems for drawing the keyboard that was going to print, and also the electronic circuit, and so it was quite interesting. I did that for 2 years, and then eventually I was more busy with the IT, and then I jumped into the IT sector.
So you came from, did I understand correctly? You came into IT from a user point of view, using software, and then you
No,
moved into that way?
I really developed software for the machines that we needed,
Ah,
like human machine interfaces.
wow.
Yeah, was or even developing the for the sales department, while developing the whole calculation software to make to calculate the price of what customers needed. So
But really business critical things, because
yeah.
both of the examples you just gave sound to me like, okay, if you do something wrong there, if you don't
Yeah.
do the right level of quality, you will see it in the business
Mm-hmm.
basically. So that I can imagine that brings a whole kind of way of looking at quality for software at a really high level.
Well, to be honest, I was too young, and I didn't know much about software engineering at that time. So I didn't really thought about quality. It just had to work.
Yeah, but your level of it has to work is pretty high. I wish all software would work at that level, but I think both
Mhm.
of us we know that that's not always the case, and people don't always look at that. But I think that, yeah, maybe you didn't realize it, but at the same time I can imagine that it's kind of in your brain is cemented in, like, okay, it has to work, and quality needs to be there for software.
Mhm.
Um, I think, well, if yeah, I'm not going to say another industry because it might might give wrong ideas to people, but I think we both, well, all of people who have developed software, sometimes you work on a project where they don't care that much about quality, and that it will cost them in the end. That they think it will be cheaper. They think they will win time, but we
Mhm.
just know statistically that's wrong. But it's sometimes hard to convince people, and if you're running into these kind of situations where right from the start people stress on it has to work, I think it kind of helps on looking on the right way. At least that's how it feels. I'm not sure. You say for you it felt that you were too young to understand that. That's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
well, it's only when I really got into the agile and in the crafters community that, well, well, right before I already had a high sense of quality, but not at that
Mhm.
time. But later, and well, quality has always driven me, and I can't explain why.
And when you say always, also at school, for example,
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
had to.
So high standards. I've
Mm,
always lived upon high standards, and well, I guess it comes from there, and I guess it comes from my father because, well, he already had high standards. He was expecting that we just did the things right. Uh, so yeah.
as fathers do, I mean.
Well, I'm not quite like that with my kids. So
But I'm in the middle of yeah. I'm struggling with this. I think with my children. At the same time, I don't want to put too high bars because, like you say,
yeah.
that's too
So
much stress. But it's hard because you also want them to prepare them for life in a way, and
yeah.
so that.
Well, I want to prepare them for life, and so I'm more so I want them that they can um, relativate. Do we say that in English?
Relativeren. Yeah. Yeah, they.
Put things in perspective.
Yeah, exactly. That's. I think that's how to say it.
Yeah.
You want them to put things into perspective so
So
that they don't put too much stress on themselves,
yeah.
that
So
they know.
I'm always telling them, yeah, yeah, it's okay. You know, Dad had his issues at school too. He wasn't really good at writing, and look, he has a job. He arrived at something. You'll find your way too.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's an important message. Yeah, the stress I was talking about is I have a daughter who puts the bar really high for herself, and at some point, and that's the situation I briefly want to talk about, is that she was having grades that were usually less good than that she usually has, and I was like, kind of surprised. And when I asked about it, I didn't want to say you need to have higher grades, but at the same time, I was kind of surprised.
mhm,
A year ago, you would be really mad about this, and now you kind of brush it off. And I was like, "What's happening?" And then it was like, "But Dad, this is the first time I'm actually able in myself in my life to not put the bar that high. And now you're going to start pushing me." And I was like, "Wow." If at 15 you can already see that kind of stuff, have this kind of conversation with me, okay, I'm backing off. We don't need to have that. It's but that's for me the kind of conversation and the kind of stress I'm talking about. You want them to, or I want my children to think about that and know which is, and it's not about that bar that high or that low. It's about,
mhm,
do you understand why? And if you say, okay, I have, and it was, I don't remember the exact grade anymore, and it's also not important. But if you're like, okay, I know this and I know I can do better, but that will put too much stress from me and I don't want that, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Then at least you know why you have that grade, and that's the kind of discussions I want to
mhm.
have. That's the But that's what I'm hearing was not the kind of discussions you had with your father. He was kind of
Yeah, no.
putting the bar high. And from what I understand, that, yeah, that didn't help you, or at least that hindered you in some parts of your life. Uh,
Did it hinder me? Well, I don't see what I realize. That is the hinder. And
because you think the bar is even higher than what I
yeah,
see.
well, no, this is normal. This is just the
Mm,
norm. and my sister has the same, and we recently talked about it, and yeah, she has the same experience. Like, yeah, people telling her, "Wow, you're doing this," and she's like, "Yeah, well."
And I don't know if your father is still alive, but this is something you were able to
No,
talk with him.
no, he went away 10 years ago. But that's okay. It's
But you were never able to talk about it. That's what I'm hearing, or not
well,
at the
we
level.
didn't really talk about these things.
No, but I think this is at some level, this is kind of a hard conversation to have, huh? With people that would
Yeah, we
like
were
to
not
do.
close enough. We also were not close enough to have these conversations, and it would have felt awkward. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I can definitely understand that. That's the kind of thing, and this makes it even harder to understand sometimes where that bar is and where you are, and that's the kind of thing. It's wow. We that's yeah, I know that some of these conversations go really deep, but this is really multiple levels that we're going already. So thanks for sharing this.
well,
I want to move to that next one. What do you consider your biggest challenge? Because you already talked a little bit about challenges, and of course, this is the biggest challenge that you want to share. There is always things that we don't want to put on the internet and whatever. So it's your choice about what level of challenge you want to talk about.
yeah. Well, my biggest challenge is speaking in public and facilitating groups. It's yeah, that's my biggest challenge, and it's sometimes it prevents me to do business. Well, lately it prevents me to do business. Like I've I've gotten scared of being well in front of a group, have all the eyes turn to you, expecting that you have the answers, and being able to just react on the questions or remarks they make, and being able to come up with something sensible like this, and yeah. And
And
I've done it many times in the past, but yeah,
is it
something happened.
and is this because of Corona that we've been more
It's
stop doing
before
it, or
Corona. It's my last big mission that was really demanding. I'm quite proud of it, but it was really demanding. And yeah, and then Corona happened, and ever since I haven't picked up consulting anymore. I'm trying to pick it up, but it's really like well,
and
I feel very little and insecure,
and I know that you've redone some things, that you've done some talks remotely. Is this easier for you remote, or is it even harder because you don't see people? How is that for you?
so I've done it remote. Well, I've done the conferences that were planned. So I've
Mhm.
enrolled the agenda just out of well, respect, and to not let people down. But then I stopped because it's super easy to do. So it requires far less preparation. And there I'm sharing a well, kind of a secret of speaking. Actually, you can just read your script and nobody realize it. So you don't. Well, I don't need to prepare that much then. So I don't need to rehearse or practice to have the
And when
script
you
in my
say
head.
read the script, it's kind of with a teleprompter or something like that, or you
Yeah,
work, or how
it's
does it?
just the notes and the speaking notes in the slides, and
That are helping you to do your
yeah,
conversation. Mm.
yeah, and but you don't get the energy back. Like you're alone in the room. You don't see the people. You don't see reactions. So you don't see the helping, nodding person. that, you know that everyone is looking for the nodding person in the public. And so you don't have that, and then it's finished, and then it's shut off, and you're like, well, I guess I will get a coffee in the kitchen and go back to work.
Yeah, especially that last part, the nodding. I have less that need. Well, it depends if it's a new talk or it's a talk that I've already done. If it's a
Yeah,
talk I've already done, I kind of know where the laughter will be and some of that stuff, so that kind of works. But indeed, you like you say, the talk is over, and then looking around like, okay, and normally people come to you after a talk and people share a little bit, and if you're lucky you get some tweets or some WhatsApp messages about people that say, hey, this was nice, and not, but that's it. And that is indeed something, it's very strange doing that remote.
yeah,
I like doing remote for me because I don't have to travel, because of that's a big advantage, because travel eats a lot of energy for me. But yeah, the fact that you don't get any feedback after a talk, that's really, yeah.
so it's not in balance. So the energy that you have put in it is not in balance with what you get back, and well, and so, and I really enjoy the after, the moment after, and the people coming to me, especially then saying like, yeah, but you wouldn't say you're shy and introvert, and these are the things I like to hear. And
Is it still bothering you that you're shy and introvert?
no, it's not.
But it's
Right.
still, because somehow you like that they tell you that you don't look shy and introvert. That
Yeah.
still is okay. It's yeah. I'm asking because I don't always know, and so that's good to know. For me, indeed, having people come to me after a talk is, well, the easiest way to make connection,
Yeah.
because
Exactly.
you do something, and now people come to you instead of networking and going out and talking to others and finding ways to talk. No, people come to me about what I talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's for me the biggest advantage of doing a talk.
It's networking for the introverts.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's a fantastic tool. You also don't need to find an opening sentence, and it just goes like that. And also, you're just walking in the hallway, and people are start to talk to you, and it's
I like that you put it as, okay, this is networking for introverts. I really, that's a phrase I'll use in the future. That I really like that. I want to go a little bit back to what you said earlier. Trying to find what you said, but you said, okay, you kept doing the talks that were already planned, so I don't know, conferences that were planned during Corona, I assume, and then you did them remotely out of some kind of curiosity, out of respect, because it was planned. Is that also linked to what you said before? It's like, okay, I was taught that this is the way to behave. If you make a promise, you have to keeping that promise. Is that part of why you kept it, or?
yeah, yeah. That is like, well, it's being respectful, and well, a promise is something that you keep as much as possible. Okay, life happens, but yeah,
I'm
also
asking because for me, indeed, making a promise is like, yeah, I prefer not to make promises, but because the promises I make, I want to keep.
mhm.
So that's the kind of thing. At the same time, I think, even if I couldn't do it myself in the exact same situation, I think Corona was enough as an excuse to say to people, look, like, I plan to go in person, I can't come in person, I'm not doing that. but somehow a lot of us we kept doing it remote because of the promises we made before. And it's interesting that life happened, we changed and a lot of other things, and then all of a sudden we want to keep a promise that's actually not a real promise that we made, because we never promised to do it remotely, and I assume
No.
you didn't promise to do it but
But
somehow it feels it's the same promise to you.
yeah, but on the other hand, being involved in the organization of some conferences, well, I know what it is and what it's how much energy it asks from organizers. Well, the least you can do is to support them and try to still make it a good conference, which usually was. So the people seem to enjoy the online conferences
And did you enjoy the online conferences when
no
you went to?
no I did my talk and then I didn't follow. I literally continued working like it's it's not the same. It's also because I didn't well I wasn't in the mood of like in the mood of well, this is now a moment for me where I'm going to attend a conference where, because well, I didn't travel for this, so I didn't got into this mood, and so I was always home, so and home was work, so yeah, just continue doing what I usually do.
At that moment, what you talk about, it reminds me of a sentence I used a lot in that time. It didn't feel like we were working at home. It felt like we were living at work most of the time,
Yeah,
because work was everywhere. And yeah, it's a little bit what you say. Okay, I go talk at a conference, but at the same time, I'm coming back, and again, I launch another application on my computer, and I keep working.
yeah,
Something like that. That's it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand that. It's I think it's interesting. We're almost 3 years later, but still, I think we can live a lot to what happened in these 3 years.
Don't tell me.
It's yeah. And what it sounds like for you, it was really hell. Like
Yeah,
you
it was a horrible period.
mm.
Very lonely. Well, I couldn't see my friends, and my friends
And
are
did,
at the, yeah, my
and did
friends
that surprise
are at
you
the conference.
as did that surprise you as an introvert? Because I had some conversations with other introverts that said, like, I was really surprised. I needed so much contact with other people. I thought I was the lonely kid and I didn't need talk to other people. Did that surprise you also,
No,
or
no, it didn't
no?
surprise me. So I've always knew I need some contact.
Mm.
I also need me time and alone time, but I need also, well, I need contact with certain kind of people. So the people that feed my uh, um, my interest and feed my thinking and well, the things I find important in life. And I find them at the conferences,
But face to face, not
face to
online.
face.
That's what you
Yeah,
mean.
um, we've done online meetings and gatherings with people we know. So we did that for the software acumen conferences like Lean Agile Exchange. So we did an evening instead of going to the restaurant, what we usually did when we were together face to face. But then we did like let's have a drink in the evening, and well, it was nice, but it's not the same. Um, we've also started and with a couple of other people like have regular online meetings like every 3 weeks. Um, People from different communities like testers, crafters, agile. Interestingly, we continue doing this. This is one that we are still having now. And these are people a bit scattered everywhere in Europe. And there's one person from New York also sometimes attending.
So you have some. So what I'm hearing is that you found a way to connect with people that on a regular basis. Because I can imagine with these same people, you would never meet them every month or
Yeah, no, normally, yeah, I see them like once a year, in the best
yeah.
case, twice, if I'm really lucky, three times.
And
Yeah,
now it's about once a
yeah,
month, a little bit more.
yeah.
But it's yeah. So yeah, I see that also for I talk a lot about the XTC club, the Extreme Tuesday club in London. That's one where I was only able to go physically, like I don't know, 3 times in my life or something
Mhm.
like. Well, maybe a little bit more, but for the 10 years or more that they exist, I have never been able to go many times. And in the first year of Corona, they went online, and I've been there every month because that was like, wow. And I ignored other events in Belgium because I was like, no, I want to talk with my London friends because I never meet them, or it's been like you say, it's like once or twice a year, and so it felt like, wow, this is an opportunity. Um,
Mhm.
so it looks like you, although remote conference is not working that well for you, you still found ways to connect with other people that was new to you and that you keep doing. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And do you do something different than what you would do? Because you said before we would go to restaurant with some other friends or other things. So what's the format that works for you? Is there anything particular about that format?
The online gatherings,
Yes.
yeah, there's nothing really particular. So we used to do it quite late at 9 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
But then a couple of us, yeah, found it too late. And then we discussed it and we suggested, yeah, can we move it to 6 p.m.? So now it's happening at 6 p.m. And it's 1 hour. And it's just, yeah, we just tell what's happening in our life.
Really connecting. It's on
Yeah,
that personal level.
yeah. It's really that. It's not really talking about professional things. It's
Mm. Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah, it's some people think it's impossible to make connections remote. I think we're not used to it. We need to find ways to do that, and
yeah,
it's harder.
but well, most of them I knew from face to face, so it's easier.
Mm. So you
But
have
so
already a connection.
yeah. And then one particular person I did never met physically, and we only met like last year in August. Yeah, for the first time. That was quite emotional. It
I
was a
can
beautiful
imagine.
moment.
I can imagine that it's now that there's that question about the biggest challenge. There's two parts of it. There is also what part of it is there good. So we talked already a little bit about okay the challenge of talking. So being an introvert and speaking and doing these workshops. What's good about that challenge for you? Do you know what's good for that?
Yeah, what it used to be good is well, it pushed me out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So I challenged myself, um, but sometimes it's too much. Oh, wow. There was a time where I really could do this over and over again, like going out of my comfort zone. But somehow I've touched a threshold, which makes it
But
difficult.
what I'm hearing, I don't know, that's it. So I'm trying to check a little bit, but I know that for many people, now that Corona is not really over because it still is somewhere floating around, but still a lot of the boundaries and a lot of the rules are gone. Um, it still feels for me that many people are now starting to feel that well it's a little bit like you're in survival mode for 2 years and now things are going back to normal and now people for the first time start to see whoa okay I took away so much of my energy to survive, and now it's the first time that I can say, oh, okay, I need to find my way. And of course, at that moment, you don't have any energy left anymore for going out of your comfort zone. Is that what's happening, or is this something
I
else?
guess I guess it's that. So lack of energy. I didn't look at that way, but yeah, now you're saying it. It's probably that.
Well, I've noticed, not for myself, not so much for in this particular case, but I've seen that in the past when I've been way in energy and survival mode for whatever happens, something personal in my life, whatever, and you're kind of in survival mode, and that works for kind of a few months, and then that situation is gone and things are going back to normal. And what I've noticed, or what I've learned about myself, I've called myself a good it's not a project manager, but I'm a good crisis manager. That's the word I was looking for. So I'm really good at taking care of the crisis. And so people think like, oh, you don't seem to bother about that situation. And it's like, no, I can handle the crisis. And then the crisis is gone. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
lack of energy, nothing stand. And in Corona, I kind of was able to deal with that in another ways. I don't really know how. But I've seen it with so many people around me, like, okay, now after 2-3 years, so all of the people that were not crashing during Corona, they're all kind of seem to crashing now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and from what I'm hearing from you, that could be something similar to what's happening.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's, well, I don't think you should be really hard on yourself about that kind of thing, because we have been surviving for 3 years. Huh? I think that's also something that I think is an important part to think about. So thanks for sharing, because I think like you said before, you've been vulnerable, sharing about being an introvert before your talk. You've been setting the stage for many people, and I think, again, here sharing that, I think many people might recognize it, but oh, that's what's happening with me, because not everybody is thinking about that.
Mhm.
I want to move to that next question. I think we kind of touched already a little bit about it. What drives you? And you already said, okay, you have that bar that's going really high because of what your father was asking for you. Do you know, is there any other thing that drives you? Because it feels even if you're introvert, you are a passionate person. Huh? I think that's undoubtable. You have a lot of passion. When you have a topic that you want to talk about, even if it's hard to come on stage, you're there and you have that idea and you have that passion. Is there
Yeah.
more where that's coming from?
Oh yeah, it's so excellence is really driving me. Like that's the thing I'm seeking. Yeah, the other thing is, it's a bit showing the world I have knowledge and I am knowledgeable. Because again, well, that's from my experience, and it's like, you're shy, you're introvert, and people tend to look over you. Like, no, they don't say anything, so they don't know. Well, that's how I have experienced this. So being able to show the world, like, look, I have knowledge and I can explain it, and I can give an argumentation on why this is a better solution than this. And I realized I'm not too bad also at explaining this to non-technical people and avoiding the tech language. Being able to explain this in their words and in words that they understand.
Which is an extremely important skill. I mean,
Yeah.
not many IT people or people that understand the technical part understand the language part about explaining something.
Yeah. So it's a thing I've seen time and time again, like engineers trying to explain to product owners, product managers, or people from business, and you see that the information flow is just not getting across. And you're like, okay, well, and then.
And do you know where you learned that skill? Because it's,
I
I
don't
think
know. I
I
don't
can
know.
imagine many people
I
listening here,
think
they say, Thierry, tell me, how do I learn this?
I think a lot is well, it's a guess I'm making. A lot is empathy, um, understanding the world that the other person is in it, and what are their challenges, and also understanding their work, what it is that they do, speaking, also using their vocabulary. Because it
You
doesn't
said
matter.
earlier on, you listen to them. And so what I'm hearing now is you're not just listening to them, you're reusing their words that they use to you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's that, and especially avoiding technology. Like, it doesn't matter which technology we use to implement this,
Ooh.
and really, they don't care. And if that technology is a problem, well, then we have a problem as tech people, and we need to find another solution. It's not their problem, and they don't need to decide about this. It's a decision we need to make.
That's an interesting part. So yeah, okay. So when you say the tech part is a problem, and of course your business people, they cannot take that decision, and
Mhm.
none of the IT people would accept it. But at the same time, you need to solve the problem. You need to, okay, if my tech stack doesn't work, let's take another tech stack that
Mhm.
does work, whatever that means. But yeah, I like that the way you say it, that in the sense that it's not their problem, it's our problem as a tech people. We need to solve it, but we need to take ownership of it and solve it for the business, because otherwise, of course, they will, well, either run away or yeah,
Mhm.
whatever. But like you say, it's they cannot take that decision because they don't understand it anyway. I thought, at least not at technical, deep technical level, but they do understand what is the problem. So that's yeah, I really like the way you put it, because that's really the empathy. It is empathy is not just, okay, how do I say it? Say, yeah, okay, I understand you where you don't understand. Empathy is really trying to really understand the problem,
Mhm. Indeed.
and then taking the responsibility for solving it. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
that is. And so what? Yeah. So this started about what drives you, and so is it correct for me that part of what drives you is actually helping that business client solve his or her problem?
It's really, so that's the other thing that drives me, is like, this um, shortening the time to market, like achieving flow, being able to deliver something useful, um, as quickly
And
as possible. And this is, well, it's an interesting challenge, and I'm like really driven by that. Like, how can we? Okay, we have this complicated feature now. Yeah, how how can we implement this? And this really helps in breaking down a feature, like in building parts. Like, yeah, okay, if we do this, is this enough? And if we do only this, would that do it? And okay, yeah, well, let's do this minimal thing, and then we can build on top of it. And
do you know where you learned that is important to reduce that scope and to really say, okay, it's that's the thing we want to solve, or that's the
that's an
minimum thing?
interesting question. I don't know where I learned it and from where it comes. And um, I think it's my first contact with Agile or something. And yeah, it triggered something with me, but I don't know from where it comes. And but I see that many have problem thinking like that. Um, and it's also, well, well, when it brings an interesting balance with the excellence part, like, because so I want to be and so I want excellence, but I still want to deliver quickly. So how do we get there? And so that avoids the over engineering and the like. Well, it's good enough. This is okay. We can always improve afterwards.
And what I'm hearing is that you learned it mostly, or you think you learned it in working in an agile way. This is not something you did in school, for example, with, I don't know, with essays.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not, because at school you learn the complete opposite. It drives me
That's what I'm
crazy.
asking.
It drives me crazy. And still, I'm trying to make that clear. And my kids, like,
School is not
also
real
like,
life.
so they are struggling writing a text, and I'm like, well, just write something and then go over it again afterwards, and then go over it again. But try to have something. I guess I know. I think I know it from where I've really learned it. I have this very good friend. I think you know him, Martin van Aken. And so we were tech coaches together for the same team in a big finance player. And he was trying to build a startup at that time. So he was half working on his startup, half coaching. And then his take was always like, do something.
Not
I
anything,
don't
but
care. I don't care what, but do something. and then based on that, we can adapt, and that really helped me. Well, I had some notions before, but it really improved with his contact. Well, now we are very good. Well, we are best. Well, he's my best friend. We kept in contact.
And what I'm hearing is that you got so much good feedback and you learned so much that it kind of stuck into your head one way or another.
Yeah, it's quite automatic right now.
I'm asking a lot more because I've been thinking today by I don't know, coincidence, a lot about the history of Agile and how much how would I say it, what we've learned in the moments that we learn Agile, how it influences us. And it was triggered to me with a conversation about the psychology of money, that when people, if you learn, if you grow up at the moment that there is a big depression in US or whatever, you think completely different about money than when you're completely wealthy and you don't have any problems. So people think in a different way. And I think my guess today, and again, it just started today, but I was thinking like, okay, there's probably something similar about Agile. If you have these first encounters, a little bit like what you now say, you do something quickly, do anything, and you get feedback and you learn from that feedback loop. And it's like, that kind of way of learning about Agile has so much influence on us. And of course, if you learn about Agile in a big way of, okay, this is Agile, and basically they throw some methodology on you that looks harder, bigger than, I think we both know about which one we're talking about. But that kind of methodologies, that's a different way of experiencing Agile, I would say.
No. To be honest, I've been quite late to the Agile thingy. Well, I've been quite late in many things, in the adoption of many things. But we were lucky. So Martin and I, we were lucky with that team, because the team had this wonderful manager, like really like the one in a lifetime manager. So the one,
both of you, that confidence, that's what I'm hearing. That's
so he treated us as equals, like really we were giving him advice, and then he took it or not, but it was not he telling us what we had to do. But in addition, and like really like the textbook manager, like the ones that are told at conferences, he just gave his team like, look, this is the mission of the team. Do whatever is necessary for this mission. I'm going to do the marketing for the team.
Wow.
Yeah. And that was like, and anything we suggested, he was like, yeah, go on, do it. And so it was like the biggest opportunity, like everything I've read in the books, I could just apply it over there, finally.
And I can imagine that gives a big confidence boost and a big like, okay, let's try out stuff and yeah.
Oh yeah, we've tried so many things. It was like wonderful.
And it kind of automatically brings me to that next question, like, okay, what do you consider your biggest achievement? I don't know if that was your biggest achievement, but it really already sounds like an achievement. So
Well,
is
that
there
was.
anything?
Yeah, and so this was one of them. So it was really like turning turning around a team of ragtags to become the reference inside that organization, like a reference team in the organization.
That sounds nice. That's
Yeah,
great.
so it was a newly created team. Like it wasn't really a team. It was like people picked from different places. Well, yeah, now you are the team, and here is your newly assigned manager. Go on. And the manager was so clever to understand that he would not be able to change the team, and that he needed people from the outside. And then he hired me and Martin. And yeah,
And it
we
clicked.
we turned around, and we so the team was responsible for 20 something applications, all written in different technologies, like crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we standardized on one language, and then we started also standardizing different all the tooling, and then at some point, we also had to manage production. Then at some point we said to operations, well, just give us a blank VM and we will do the rest. And that's where it was around the time that the book Continuous Delivery came out. And then we start reading the book and we were like, oh, we're doing this.
We're not alone.
Yeah. Because we had to manage 20 applications, so we had to automate a hell of a lot out of it, and then someone said, like, at the start, someone suggested, well, we should try Scrum. Oh yeah, Scrum, yeah, good idea. And then everyone in the organization, well, it's the kind of organization that sent then like everyone to a Scrum training, regardless of they needed it or not, but everyone went to a Scrum training. And then I looked up the trainer, and then I saw that, oh, but he's from my city. And then I went to a public training that he gave, and that's how I learned Scrum. And then we started applying Scrum, and yeah, we started then to release at first every 2 weeks, but then we evolved in a more Kanban style. Like, yeah, we release whenever we feel the need to release. Yeah, it was like.
This is a wonderful story, and you said earlier this is one of the things. Is there something else where that is even bigger, or is this what you say? This is the thing I'm most proud of.
Well, up until recently, this was really the thing. Like I was most proud of. Then, the team manager pushed me to present inside the organization, but I didn't want to. I was like, because he was like, yeah, but it's thanks to you that this is possible. So you should have part of the success. And no, do your thing. I'm okay here in the back, in the shadow. But he kept pushing, and then that's how I got into public speaking. So one night, in a crazy moment, I've submitted to two Agile conferences in Belgium, and that's how it started. I'm quite proud I've done it, or I'm quite proud of doing the public speaking, although it's demanding, and every time I feel horrible when I'm in front of it. But yeah.
But you're happy after you've done it. That's what.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the after. And so I like to say I dislike public speaking, but I love having spoken.
I like that. I love having spoken. Yeah, that's also a very nice sentence. I like that. It's really sounds like this is a manager that really was pushing you at the level that was uncomfortable at some points, but that really kind of knew what you needed, even if it was hard. It really was something that, like, even like you say, public speaking is hard, but somehow it also helped you in many ways. Is this correct?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it gave me a lot back. Gave me a lot of recognition, but also a lot of connections. Like all of a sudden, you're speaking with people that you were looking up to.
And could you give some examples of the people that you're looking up to that you talked with? Because I think, well, might be nice to have some name dropping here.
Well, one of them is became a very good friend of me. It's Steve Smith. So when I did my first talk, he was interviewed for, how is this website called again that does those interviews? Ben Linders was interviewing him. It was about
InfoQ.
for InfoQ. Yeah, it was about his recent talk, the death of continuous integration, and I just did a talk about facts and fallacies of continuous delivery. And then I started following him, and I really liked his style. Like, he has he doesn't mind saying his opinion, which I'm looking up to. Like, wow. And he was organizer of Pipeline Conf. It doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, but I went a couple of times. And I've submitted to Pipeline Conf. I've never spoken there. I'm a bit sad about that, but never mind.
Steve, if you're listening, restart the conference and
and then he started writing his book, Measuring Continuous Delivery, and I bought a book, and then I found a couple of errors in it, and I sent him an email. We already had an email conversation prior to that regarding, that I wasn't selected for Pipeline Conf. But I've sent him an email about this, and then he replied, and then he was like, "Would you like to be a reviewer of my book?" And I was like, wow. And so I've did that, and that got us closer, and now so.
that's how we make. Yeah, this is why I asked a little bit deeper, and it's not that so much about the name dropping, but I think this is a nice example how we and maybe even more introverts make friends in a way in the industries. Like, okay, I recognize your big parts of your story, not the exact story. Of course, my story is different, but I read a lot of books, but I don't consider myself really smart. So it's not so much that I find errors, but I send a lot of emails to authors more like, I'm probably too stupid, but I really don't understand it. Could you tell it a little more in easier language, in baby English or something like that? And that really helps them, because sometimes indeed they explain it in way too complicated stuff. because somehow a lot of consultants want to. If you write a book, some people have the idea that you need to use very difficult language because then you look smarter. If you write a book, that's how you do it as a consultant. I don't like it. I prefer that people use easier language that is easier to understand. So for me, it's helpful if they can do it in a different way. And sometimes they might adapt for their book, sometimes not. That's not my point. But the thing is, I get that way, that kind of connection. And sometimes people say, but yeah, how do you know all these people? It's like, yeah, I just email them because I don't understand something. And most, like you say, most people are really helpful. They're like, wow, okay, somebody took the time to read what I've written, and okay, asks a question, and they just, well, everybody loves feedback, and if even if the feedback is I don't understand it, please help me more. That's how we create connection. And so I'm not surprised that Steve asked you then to become a reviewer. I do understand the emotion, like, why would you ask me? Well, because as an author, it's nice to have someone who actually reads it and gives you feedback. So it helps both of us when we do have that kind of conversation. And I want to stress it because so many people, yeah, sometimes you look up at the person that wrote the book and you think like, oh, they're like, yeah, but there are also people that like to have feedback. And somehow we forget to give. Well, I've noticed, I mean, like the last 6 months I've been on a path where I really want to insist to telling the people, hey, you told me this or that 6 months ago or a year ago, I'm still using that information, I still learned something. And somehow, yeah, after you give a talk, like you say, people come to you and tell you like, this is good. But 2 years later, we forget to say like, hey, this kind of thing you said, this is still helpful for me. I'm trying to become better at it. It's not that good, it's not that easy, but I think it's important to give that kind of feedback to people. It's and it's really nice that you share that story, because I think many people, especially new people in the industry, they might not realize how easy it is, especially these days and age with social media. But even back in the old days, most books had, well, many technical books had email addresses for authors in it, and you could find ways to contact them. So it's so thanks for sharing, because I think it really, yeah, it's important for people to realize how that goes. So I want to move to the next
Yeah.
question. Or you want to add something?
Yeah, I would like to add something. So there's, yeah,
Go ahead.
the biggest thing I'm proud of is so I was asked like in 2019 to help 15 teams that were working on a monolith go from biannual releases to fortnightly releases. And it was my first experience with 15 teams, like really the big thing. So we're speaking 150 people that are impacted. And they did that in less than 4 months, and they achieved it. And I remember when they contacted me, I was like, well, that's an interesting question, and it's good to have challenging visions. It might be you never reach it, but that's okay, you know. But they just did it. It was like, yeah, it was amazing, and it's a fantastic story to share. I'm still sharing it today, but it was really demanding as an experience for me, because I was alone doing that, and I was trying new things that I never did before. I've done the improvement kata, value stream mapping, theory of constraints, all combined. Never done that before. So when I look back, I didn't know what I was starting, and also when it was done, I didn't realize how big this thing was. It's 6 months later at GitCon in Ghent. You were there too at GitCon, and don't know if you remember Douglas Squirrel. Squirrel for the friends.
Mm-hmm.
He always organizes a Agile war story session where people can share their Agile adoption stories. And one of the people from the organization was present in that session, and he shared what they were doing, and that I was helping them. And then Squirrel was looking at me, and he was like, how did you manage their fears? And I was staring at him. What fears? What are you talking about? I don't know.
I just jumped into it, and now you tell me they were scared.
Yeah. And then and then he was like, "Can I interview you?" What? Yeah. How did you do that? Well, I have 60 pages of notes I need to look up. And yeah, he interviewed me, and that then became the Fear Conversations case in their book, Agile Conversations. And I am super proud about that. Like I mentioned in the book. Wow.
But it's a wonderful story. I heard you talk multiple times already about it, I think, and it's yeah. I really like again how you talk about some of these things that you might not even realize what you were doing, or the big impact, and that's interesting because I've seen that also. Sometimes we spend so much time on a certain project and we think so much about it, and then it falls flat, and then something else, like you jump in, it's hard, and you work for 6 months or 4 months on it with 150 people, so it's stressful for yourself, you're all alone, but then it works, and then only later you realize, well, whoa, wait a minute, 150 people, I was alone, that's it's an impressive story. And it's nice that you have people at KitCon talking about it to actually make you realize, like, Thierry, this is not something it is really, it's an achievement. So
Yeah,
thank you
indeed.
for
And
making the time here, because we've been talking about other things, and again, it's not up to me to tell you this is your biggest thing. It's for you to bring that up. But I'm glad you did bring that up. Is there anything, because you said you did it alone? You said a few other things. Is there anything you would different if you look back at it now?
yeah, so I always said I want to redo this, but I don't want to do it alone.
Mm,
Um, but that's the hard part, not doing it alone. It's fine. Well, finding a customer that wants to pay for two people. That's
mm,
one, and then finding the right people, because so I ended up facilitating groups of 10 to 20 people. In the beginning, 20, and then as you go, well, people drop off, and you end up with 10, which is manageable. But well, I wouldn't have been able to make a talk from this and do the interview, wouldn't I have taken notes? But this means that you are facilitating and taking notes at the same time.
that's almost impossible. I mean, you put talking about putting the bar really high. I mean,
Yeah,
uh, it's yeah. I noticed, for example, I have a very bad handwriting, so very early on when I started facilitating, I at some point realized, like, I'm not going to take notes on the whiteboard because nobody can read my handwriting. And so I felt really bad because I saw people around me really doing wonderful note taking while facilitating, and I said, I can't, because of physical, just handwriting is just bad. I had years of therapy and everything around that, I know I can't do it. And so I outsourced it always to the group, say, okay, who wants to do that? And later on, I realized that, wait a minute, that gave me so much more freedom to facilitate and not having to care about that. That it actually, but still, I felt for a very long time bad because I felt like I should be able to do that. And now I'm like, no. And so I'm really impressed when you say, okay, I still took notes for myself while I was doing this. Like, wow, that's impressive, because it really means, again, you need to pay attention double kind of attention, I think.
Yeah. But damned, now you're saying something. Of course, I should have asked the audience to take notes. Damned.
Well, yeah, but it's
a fantastic advice you just gave there. Okay, next time I'm going to do that. First thing, okay, who is going to take notes? Now I can relate. I can relate to the handwriting. I'm exactly the same. So, but well, I still did the handwriting and I didn't care. But yeah, I can so relate to what you are telling, and I'm also in awe when I see others making those beautiful pictures on whiteboard, and you're like,
yeah. But for me, I think I've followed now more than 10 trainings about creating wonderful pictures and
oh yeah, I gave up.
facilitation, whatever. And exactly, I gave up and I said, okay, I know that, yeah, I'm just creating a circle that is closed is hard for me and I think I know part of where it's coming from. So I no longer care about it. It's good because it made me realize like, okay, there are physical limitations. And so this is what helped me saying I'm not making notes. And from what I'm hearing here, I learned that earlier than you did. But I felt really bad for, I think, at least 10 years about that because it really felt like I should be able to do this. Um, and yeah, that's and again, we need to look for ways on helping ourselves. And that's a little bit. But on the other hand, it helped you in the sense that you now have 60 pages of notes that I don't have. I might have lots of pictures of notes that other people took, but yeah, especially for a project that might be really handy to have these 60 pages of notes. So again, we do what we do at certain point, and some things are good, some things are bad. That's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but thanks for sharing, and also sharing the backstory. Not just that you did that wonderful thing, but also that kind of you needed other people to make you realize how important that was for this company and for yourself and other things. And that's also again, and I think I shared it many times with you. I really like how you show the vulnerability in some of these things, and you show about, okay, this is the lessons that I'm learning, and this is, I tried it, I did it on my own. Something's good, something's bad, and okay, and I learned from that, and I didn't even realize how good it was, because a lot of us, we sometimes don't realize what are their biggest achievements, and sometimes it's only, yeah. And it would be a shame that yeah, then when people are gone, that only then when people start to talk at the funeral or whatever, like, oh, person was so good, he did that and that, and I prefer to hear it when I'm still alive. And that's a little bit what you're saying, is that at KidCon, and also you didn't really mention it, but you organized it in Ghent, yeah, right?
Yeah,
Um,
indeed.
that's because what I like about that conference is that it's the same kind of conference, but it's a little bit around the world, but it's always with local organizers. And
Yeah.
yeah, so again, you kind of said, oh, and I was like, that was a conference that was already on my list for a while, and I was thinking like, and what country will I go to? And all of a sudden it's like, what, this is happening in my hometown? Thierry is organizing, like, okay, whatever, I need to be there. That was kind of an interesting thing as well to see happening.
Yeah, I'm quite proud of that one too. Having organized KidCon on, well, effectively on my own.
Yeah, I was about to say, most conferences I know are basically is a small team, sometimes a larger team. And I was really surprised when I went and I realized, like, wait a minute, Thierry, you did this all yourself. I assume you had some input from the people who invented the format
Yeah,
and everything, but
so Jeffrey and PG were supporting, but yeah, Jeffrey was in London, PG is in the US, so there's not much they can do except
no, they can just say, this is what you need to think about,
yeah.
and that's to-do list basically. But you still have to contact locations and whatever. Yeah, anyone who's organized a conference knows how much work it is. And I think it went flawless. The only thing that was a problem, but I don't think it was due to you, is the t-shirts that were sent too late. That was a kind of a strange thing that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
But the other thing, the good thing is that I received a t-shirt from that conference like a year or two later. I don't
yeah.
know exact how much time. And it was like, at the moment, I completely didn't think about it anymore. There was an email coming in. Oh, we want to send you a T-shirt for that conference. Like, oh, that's a nice reminder. So at the
Yeah, that
conference
was
itself, it was a bummer, but 2 years later down the road,
uh,
I don't know. I say 2 years. I don't know how long it was in between, but for me, that was like, oh, this is nice. I get a reminder for a conference. So
mhm,
in that sense, it was again a positive thing. Something
mhm.
you would never plan, but it was positive. So again, a nice example of something you achieved. Okay, let's move now to that other question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share? Is there anything where you say this is something? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it's a thing that I apply quite often, and to the extreme. It's defer decisions to the last responsible moment. Um,
Mm.
it's like it has been most helpful for myself and for my family, because it's not only professionally, I also do that in my private life. And so my wife and I, like, she completely understands that, and she also thinks like that, like, okay, what can we do to defer the decision? What
That's
can we
really
do
a
to
great
make
one.
that the decision is not irreversible?
So that's even more interesting because then
Yeah,
you take a decision. It doesn't matter if you take it early or
yeah,
late. If you can reverse it, that's
yeah,
basically the ideal situation, I would say.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and is this something you say she has that same mindset? Does she have any agile experience, or where
no,
did that
no, no,
mindset
no.
come from in her case?
From talking with me, from discussions, from sharing what I do. Sharing from the community, and she's interested. So no, she's absolutely not in agile, not in IT.
But some of
But
these principles are useful in many other cases, like
yeah,
yours.
it's, well, because it's a lean principle, and lean doesn't come from IT. Lean comes from car manufacturing. So
Exactly, and but that's why it's interesting to see indeed some of that. Yeah, that it can go further than, yeah, like you say, you can
yeah.
apply it in your personal life. So that's
But yeah, sometimes it makes me laugh when people come well with. Sometimes I see session proposals like, yeah, how can we apply agile in non-IT environments? And I'm like, you do realize that agile absolutely doesn't come from IT. It was there way before IT took over from lean, and
yeah. I think it's interesting for the people who know the history a little bit. I try to think about the name. There's a German person that at an Agile Coach Camp Germany created some kind of, I don't know how to say it, but a kind of map where he put all the links and everything that inspired Agile in multiple ways. And they were really like, okay, Deming is a typical thing that is there.
yeah,
There's Lean, there is the Toyota way, and there's many things. But he went back like years and years and years. It was really wonderful with many people from. I should really try to find if that document still exists, but because it was a wonderful way to look at history and say, oh, okay, there is something else that I don't know. I remember, I think this is one of the first places where I saw Deming coming in, and I knew already the Toyota way, and I knew I had read that name Deming before, but I wasn't really looking into that. And that was the moment that I said, okay, maybe I should start reading Deming and some other people. So really trying to learn where are some of our influences coming from, because I was one of these people that I came from IT, so my original influences into Agile were all IT influences. And so it was really good for me to learn about other kind of influences.
Yeah, but I didn't realize it back then, and I feel really ashamed about this because I did have theory of constraints at university. It was one in one of our courses, and we learned about Goldratt. And I found my courses back like 10 years ago when I was cleaning the attic, and then I was like, damn,
Wow, I learned
it was
about
there.
this.
It was there. And yeah, well, I feel ashamed because
Well,
I
think
lost
that
all that knowledge in between, and then I found it back, and then I became really like passionate about Coltrane and theory of constraints because, well, it was going back to my my original education.
but maybe somehow it was already in your brain, and yeah, you didn't realize it in a way. I sometimes feel indeed that some of the things we learn at university that we might be too young to understand some of the
Mhm.
details about it. And if it makes you feel better, I once heard a story about Ken Beck where he thought that I don't remember what, but there is a part in extreme programming. One of the things that he was so sure that he invented himself, and then he had some similar kind of story as you, reading, finding back some of the books from university, whatever, and he saw that, oh, actually that one part that I thought that I completely invented myself, I also had some things about it in university. It's yeah. So I think many of us, we stand on the shoulders of others that we don't always realize it. And sometimes it might be one sentence that's said to you when you're really young. Sometimes it's a whole course, like you say, on theory of constraints. Tomorrow the video with Vasco Duarte is going out, and we also talked about the goal from Goldratt. And turns, I thought of like, okay, this book is 20 years old, and he looked it up while we were talking. It was 40 years old. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah, it's
I,
1984, so it's 40 years.
exactly. And I was like, wow, I didn't even realize. I knew it was already. I said, yeah, it's yeah. It's insane that you think about it for, yeah, so many things that are existing way before whatever we do in the agile world. And luckily we don't always, well, sometimes I see people reinventing the wheel, but luckily some of us really look back and say, wait a minute, there's a book that explains these things and is actually better, and we can build upon that. So that's
Mhm.
and this is for me one of the reasons why I do these interviews. Is I want to bring in new people, because new people in the agile world, they will talk about, yeah, the new things of the future, and at the same time sometimes bring in the people who have some more experience or have some knowledge about history to actually tell to the new people, like, look, there are things that have been done, and there is a book that is 40 years old, and you might be interested in reading that. Because I think both are valuable for our industry. It's
Mhm.
so thank you for sharing. I want to move a little bit into that question, that one part of the answer where you say, I want to take example, I want to make decisions that are reversible. Could you give an example about something in your personal life or professional, doesn't matter, about such an example of a decision that is reversible?
Yeah, but it's a bit too personal, and
Okay, well, then you don't need to again.
so
This is
some people know it, but I prefer
no,
to
but
keep it a bit. But
let's not move it.
it's the perfect example of deferring. Yeah, no, it's just
No, but then let's not go there. I think that's perfectly fine. To if people that do know you, they can ask you personally, and if you
mhm.
feel that you can say it personally, that's let's not put that on the internet. That's
But
fine.
yeah, professionally, it's often that I say to people like they want to do something, and I saying like, no, you don't need that right now. Yeah, but we know we will need that. Yeah, but right now you don't need it. For this feature, you don't need it, so we won't implement this. Yeah, but we know that we will have to do this. Yeah, well, we will do that at that moment.
And we don't
Right
need
now,
to,
we don't have the knowledge to implement this.
and we don't have the time because, like you said, we want to deliver something in a faster way.
Also,
The moment we
and
need it, we can take
it's a
that time.
discussion I've had over and over again. Yeah, but we know that we need to be flexible. Yeah, but right now you don't need to be flexible. Yeah, but then we will have to redo it. Well, yeah, we will redo it later.
Yeah, but there's a lot about also we need to make sure that we write something for the people we have. We first need to have customers. If you don't,
Exactly.
I've had a similar kind of discussion with a startup, I think about 6 months, a year ago. This is really a startup. This is a two-person. They're trying to create something. They have completely no customers. They have a really good idea. I think it's going to fly. But still, they were in the middle of creating this, and they were like looking at we need Kubernetes and we need all these kind of things, and it will scale up to 100,000 people. And I was like, you don't even have 2 people. Don't worry about 100,000 people. Let's first get something out the door. Let's see if indeed people want to pay for it. And once you have 10 customers, you can worry about 100 customers, and then you can worry about 1,000 customers. And let's take it one step at a time.
And Kubernetes is overrated.
Yeah, it's that's why one of the reasons why I used that dropped that name, because it doesn't really matter what technology it is. There's like, you need to look for the technology that you need at that moment.
Mhm.
If you don't have any customers, make sure that you can do something that is, it doesn't need to be scalable. You just need to prove to your customer that it's working, that you can help them, and they need to prove to you that they're willing to pay for it, and then you can start worrying about everything else.
Exactly.
uh, because they were looking, they were actually asking me for how could I make it, could you find us some consultants that can tell us how we can make it cheaper and whatever. It's like, the cheapest way is not using that technology, and the cheapest way is to not even develop it. Like don't even worry about that. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
but like you said, exact all the same excuses that you were just talking about. People saying, yeah, but we know if once we reach 100,000 people, we will need it. Yeah, then
We'll figure
you
out
can
then.
hire everybody who can help you with. If you have that kind of clients, you will, that money won't be your issue at that moment. So let's work. That's a
Indeed.
good problem to have, actually,
Mhm.
to have 100,000 users. But you're not there yet. So let's worry about the problems you have at this moment.
Exactly.
Thank you for sharing, because that's, it's it's insane how people and IT people, and I've been there. It looks
Oh,
like I'm shaming
me too.
people, but I think both of us, we've been there. We've seen it. It's very tempting to program the world and to
Oh,
make
yeah.
everything. As long as you don't have to pay it, and the moment that you start thinking as a business owner and you start to think about who's paying the bills, then it starts to become a completely different ball game. It's
Exactly.
So yeah, and then the reversible things are really important. Okay, let's move to the next question about remote working. And you already talked a little bit about during Corona how hard that is. Do you have any tip about remote work? Well, maybe let's start first. Did you do any remote working even before Corona, or was that
Yeah.
completely new
So
for you?
no. I actually I'm working remote since 2019. Yeah.
Mm.
Or was it
So already,
2018? Or was it 2018? Yeah.
so
But
even a few years before Corona.
yeah. So it wasn't new for me, and I'm still working remote. But I'm not really the right person to give advice about remote work because we are not really a remote first organization. So I'm working remote, and then we have another colleague who is in Thailand working remote, obviously. And we have a third one in New Zealand, which is quite challenging time zone wise.
Yeah,
But all
that's
the
two
rest,
different time zones, I see.
yeah, all the rest is concentrated in Brussels. So so I go like, well, I used pre-Corona, I used to go once a week to the office, and now since Corona, it's like, Yeah, once a month. Sometimes it's 2 months. Sometimes it's 3 months that goes before I go back to the office. But yeah, we are a very small team, so collaboration is less of an issue. There's not that much collaboration, so it's really asynchronous that we work. Lots of writing. So it's not the most the best way of working remote, but it works for us. It works for us. We deliver, and we have a high retention rate of employees. So I'm not too worried about the situation.
And
But
is there
wow.
anything that you, because like you said, you were going to the office once a week. Now you scaled back. Is there anything that made that possible for you? Is there anything particular that you do, or nothing that you can
What do you mean that made that possible?
I don't know, because I assume that at the moment before Corona, you said I went to the office once a week. Somehow you felt that it was needed. In Corona, of course, all of us were working at home, and now you feel like it's no longer needed. Is there
Yeah,
did you change
so
your way of working, or?
Corona. Well, it was more like the rest of the organization was not working remote. I was the only one.
Hmm?
So you feel a bit bad being remote, not going to the office. So it's a bit out of respect that you go to the office. But then, yeah, Corona happens, and then you realize that during 2 years you work remote, and
It's working.
it's it's working. So why would you go back to the office? It's just that,
Mm.
and it works. And it works really well. So, and for me, it makes my life so much easier.
And
So
what
wow,
part makes it easier for you?
yeah, there's no commute anymore. So it's
Again,
quite a lot.
Brussels is really the hard part. That
Yeah, so it's quite a lot of. It's 2 hours per day that you win. Even
yeah.
with public transport, it's 2 hours per day. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'm working for a client that wants us to become 3 days to the office per week,
Oh,
or 2 or 3 days. And if I'm doing a workshop with people, I feel, yeah, I like that. Like you said earlier on, that connection, I really like that. But if I'm sitting there for being in a Teams meeting with other people who are remote, like, no, I don't want to do that. Then I prefer to stay at home.
yeah,
So yeah, I definitely see that part, and
but
I think, yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, the organization, so the fintech, I'm mostly collaborating with. Yeah, they don't care. They are really kind people and easygoing, and so yeah, and
They just want the
well,
results, and as
yeah,
long as you
so
deliver, that's the thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
so they and yeah, quite a lot of the staff like to be in the office. Well, yeah, that's good. If you need that, do that.
Mm.
And that's nice. And others, well, yeah, well, there are some physical reasons why they can't get into the office. Well, if you're in Thailand, you're not going to come.
Hmm.
But it's quite an interesting experience having all those time zones. Now we did realize that one thing that didn't work and that we tried is asynchronous synchronization. Like we
Mm.
used a tool like Alice, but that didn't work. So either people didn't fill it in, or it was just not read. Like it's like writing a report that nobody reads. It's a bit that. And so at some point we decided, like, yeah, we are going to have a synchronization at a specific moment in time, with the people we can synchronize with, like where the time zone is not too far away. So with Thailand, we can synchronize during the day. And then we have one synchronization point per week, with the person in New Zealand. Like it's end of his day, it's start of our day, but it's really already late his end of day, and it's really early our start of the day. But wow, at least
you do it once a week and not more.
Yeah, and it helps. It was needed because there was a lack of focus at certain point in time, and that works, and that helps. Now it happened that
story, what I want to go a little bit. What I hear about your story is that basically your tip is like, okay, look for the kind of communication you need. So you try it.
Yeah.
It's not
So
working.
look at your context. So it's not because Scrum says you need to do that every day. Well, just do what works for you. And it's always been my mantra. Like, yeah, well, I don't care. Yeah, we're not agile according to the books, but at least we release, and we release faster than our customers, and that's why they are our customers.
Well, that's the interesting part. Agile by the book. If you're staying too long in the same thing, that's not agile by my definition. I mean,
Yeah.
you should adapt, and if your situation is changing, you have to adapt as well. And if you're realizing that some of the things you're doing are not working or not good enough, whatever. I mean, it's a little bit like if you have conversations with your partner at the moment that everything is going fluidly, you don't need to talk that much, you just have your whatever. And then there's moments that things are a little bit tense, and it could be for things external to your partnership. It could be because whatever happens between the two of you, well, at that moment I assume that most people will start talking more and have different kind of conversations, and maybe you go back to some scaling back or other kind of things, like make it more formal. Let's have at least, I don't know what, and that's a little bit what I think we need to do much more into teams as well. Like, okay, let's look. And what you said, we tried it, we noticed, okay, every day with New Zealand is probably not possible, just time zone wise, but not doing it, or only doing it once a month, then you don't talk enough. That I can definitely see that. So you need to find the right balance and find the right timing. So that's I think that's really good advice. That is adapt what is needed. So I really like that. It's and I interrupted you because I wanted to stress that out. Was there something else you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I wanted, but I forgot.
Sorry.
Yeah, what was it again? Yeah, I can't find it back. Never mind.
That's if later on we can add it in the show notes if you do remember. But we've been talking already for a long time. Let's move to that next question about a book. And I know that you have a few books that you wanted to talk about. So what's a book you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's a bit. So yeah, when I saw the question, I was like, yeah, but I've read a couple of books recently. Now, some of them I don't feel really comfortable to talk about, but I find them really, really important. But yeah, it's a thing I am learning about because, well, so one of them was programmed inequality. So it's about that's the book. It's about women in IT, but it's a bit the history of women in IT in the UK, and how the UK created a harmful situation for women in IT. The interesting thing is, more and more people are aware of that actually IT started with women, because it started in World War II, where the UK had supercomputers to decode the messages of the Germans, and those computers were operated by women.
That were called computers at that time.
I don't know if they called them computers at that time.
I don't know if it was about women, the women in UK, but I heard once that the first programmers were called computers or something similar to
Yeah,
in part of that history. But okay,
but
continue.
they did very specialized work.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, they were not allowed to talk about this because this was state secret, also after World War II.
Mm.
And so a lot of this history went away because of that. But a lot of women kept working as what they call civil servants, which is what we would call here in Belgium like public administration staff, because the public administration had a lot of computers and needed a lot of computers, and that were women that operated it. But women were belittled, patronized, kept small, and they were seen like blue collars. This was really in the hierarchy completely below, where they did very, very, very important work.
But
And
we're
they
not
could
recognized for it.
and they were not recognized for it, and they could not have a career. They could not even apply for higher positions, and yeah, and they even brought policies out by men, obviously, that prevented that. Like, no, just not possible. Now, when you read the book, it's really horrible. Well, I found it horrible, but I realized that, all right, now this is about the UK, but if you look at Belgium and you really look at the IT industry, well, I start to understand why there was so few women in the industry, because we created that. Men created that.
And like you said earlier on, that makes you feel uncomfortable about reading that, because of course we're here two white men talking about it. Even if we didn't create these laws,
I
it
feel
is a
responsible.
situation. Exactly, it's part of how can we help and try to change that situation. And for me, this is why I like that you bring up the topic. It's not comfortable, but at the same time, it's the situation what it is. These are the facts, and we need to look at these kind of things. And one of the parts where I do feel even more responsible, if I look at the very first Agile conferences in Benelux, the XP Day Benelux, the original organizers were way more diverse than they are today, and I think you can even see it in the there still is this is a conference that has not I would say still is a normal or more women than in a lot of other conferences, but at the same time I feel like it's declining. So it feels like we should really be very careful to not have something similar. And I don't think it's on purpose and whatever, but we need to be really careful about it. It's
Well, it requires really consciousness and continuous work on this. So the one conference I know that is really, really good at diversity, and they are still working on it. It's Socrates Germany. So Socrates Germany, it stands for software craft and testing. So it started it's over 10 years, I think, that it exists. So it's an open space conference. So no schedule. It's like GitCon. GitCon is older than Socrates, but they work really hard on diversity, and that's also why they introduced a lottery, and that they ask people to tick a box: are you a minority or not? And then they prioritize the minorities. So they have two lotteries, one for the minorities and one for the others. And as a result, well, they have something like 40% women that are present for quite a tech conference, which is quite good. But they also have quite a lot of non-binaries and people that identify them differently than their physical gender, and that makes it so interesting. I've took my family to the conference, like so my wife and my kids, and my kids were looking at it and were like, ah. And then they were like, oh, yeah. I feel uncomfortable to say it, but I'm using the words of my kids, and I hope nobody will take me, will be offended. Like, oh, there's a man that is dressed like a woman, and my wife was like, yeah, that's normal, that's okay. What do you think? Oh, well, it's beautiful, and now they find this completely normal. I found this such a life lesson for my kids. Now it's also this wonderful conference where you have topics that are going from hardcore tech, like I want to learn Clojure, to sessions about polyamory, or I'm going to become a father. Please help me, or I like to do my nails. I'm going to do a session on doing
Nail
my
polishing.
nails. Yeah, nail polishing. I find this so. Yeah, it's the one conference, and I absolutely love to go, because it has this energy. It brings topics that I'm not expecting. Well, no, I'm not that surprised anymore, but I love it. Just like, yes, we are interesting people. We bring interesting topics. We are, well, people may see us as geeks, but look how intelligent those people are. We have sessions about philosophy, and how certain practices are harmful, even in Agile. And then there's someone that is going to explain us why this is harmful.
But there's so many things popping up in my mind for what you're saying. But yeah, basically the basic is, when you find ways to bring in a diverse set of people, you have diverse opinions, you have all kind of things. And what is important is that most people don't realize that this is part of society, but it's a part of society that most of us, a little bit like your children, what you say, they don't see it in a way. And yeah, I think that's, I have a niece who's a lesbian, but when she grew up, it took a long time before she realized it, because at some point it was like, in my hometown where she was born, or in her hometown, she didn't see any people like her. And so it took her, I don't know the exact year, but let's say it took her like in her 20s, or the early 20s, or the late teens, to realize like, oh, what I feel is normal, and there's actually a lot more people like me. Just that. And yeah, it's like that is so important for people to know. Um and like you say, well, in IT, just women in IT, it's insane that we have 50% of the people that are not seen in IT, because whatever, some men thought they don't belong, or they feel like no, this is
Yeah,
this is
it's
insane.
so we are missing a lot of input, and a lot of views, and It's
and we see it at many different kind of levels, and like you say, it's a lot of work. I've done work with Coder Dojo for bringing in just little girls into
mhm.
IT and helping them, and it takes a lot of effort. Usually, and I'm afraid to say, but it usually is with the dads. It's really the dads that I need to tell and explain.
I
Look, you
remember.
know,
I
don't.
remember you shared a story about that, like where you said to a parent, "Yeah, but I think your daughter would be interested." Yeah, no. No, I think she would be interested, and that well, the daughter was like, yeah, I would like to do that.
Yeah, it was really like I was asking a girl. So there's a boy coming in to have the full story. There's a boy coming in, and his sister is with him. And so I just normally I don't know if she's interested or not. So the boy subscribes. So I take notes and then ask to the girl next to him, like, "Are you interested?" And I see a very big smile. Like she was like normal coming in, a normal kid, a girl, I don't know, 7, 8 years old, something like that. Already like girls being cheering. But the moment I asked, it was like a real big smile. And the dad just standing behind is like, "No, she's not interested." And I see that smile dropping. And I had that conversation like a few times, like, "Are you sure?" And again, that big smile. "No, no, no, I know my daughter." And again, like, uh, uh, and this is not just one time. I had multiple of these kind of conversations, and it's like, and sometimes you just want to take that dad and say, "Look at your daughter," and like, damn it. Of course, I'm way too polite to do that, but I share this story so much because, and I've shared it with dads. It's like that people say, "Oh, this is really bad," and I'm thinking like, "Yeah, but this was almost like your story. I didn't tell it so that you don't recognize it that it's about you because I add some extra details." But sometimes it's that, and I've noticed that when I put the effort, that yeah, we can get it. And in Ghent, we before Corona, unfortunately, it dropped after Corona. I stopped helping out Kodo Dojo for other reasons, but it's not due to that. It's more to Corona that we've lost a lot of people, of course, because children grew older. But before Corona, at multiple times, we were able to get 50% of girls, but it was a lot of work every month, really convincing parents, really talking about it. The good thing is that once you reach a level, so I think the first 10 to 20% were the hardest. Once we got across that 20%, when girls came in, they looked like, "Oh, there's actually other girls here." Oh, and then they were even more talking to their parents, like, "Look, oh, I see this girl," and thinking things like that. So, but it still is a lot of work to convince the parents, mostly, to let at least have their children try it, um, and then they can decide on their own. And if they don't like it, they don't like it. It's not like they have to do it. It's really
Mhm.
like, hey, try it out and see if you like, if you think about computers, if you like something. And that's the thing. And of course, you need to do a little bit different if you want to create games with boys, and if it's all about shooting and it's competitive and whatever. And girls, it might be more like, okay, we're going to dress up or we're going to have music things. But basically, they both learn the same thing. They learn to create events, and when you click on something, something else happens. With the boys, it's a competition. With the basketball and with the girls, it's some music and it's some dancing. But in the end, they learn similar kind of activities. And I think it's indeed that important. And the good thing is that at least in IT, the numbers in STEM are going up. Not much, but they're going up since,
Yeah,
well,
but
we
we
put a
don't
lot
we
of
don't we
effort.
don't see but we don't see the effect in on the work floor.
Yeah, but that will take another 4 to 5 years at least, because, well, if I'm talking about STEM, I'm talking about 12 years old. So then
Yeah,
it takes 6 years before they got into university. Then it takes another 4 years, so that
yeah.
is even 10 years. But at least in STEM, we see some things going up. And I think we need to do similar kind of work a little bit. Well, you didn't talk about it. You talked about the administration and things that are doing on a negative side, I think in a lot of companies we need to push back and say, okay, you need to look for them.
Yeah,
um,
I had today a conversation with someone from the fintech. They are hiring for the marketing, and she said, so it's our legal officer, and she said like, yeah, but yeah, she was like, yeah, it's not quite diverse, the candidates that we have. It's like, yeah, but you need, well, have you tried? Well, yeah, what can we do? Well, yeah, you need to try. It's, but
but you also
I'm
need to change the wording of the job application, of the job, what is it,
yeah.
the
So I haven't looked at the job application also. But
but
yeah, well, I said, well, what doesn't help is we are an all white company, so it won't attract other people because they will feel well different, and so that's a starter.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to add about that, I forgot to add about Kodo Dojo. One of the things I've noticed, and it's brief, so it's a small change, but once we achieved 50% of girls, we also saw more non-white children
Well,
applying. So
look,
again, not enough. So if you compare to the of Ghent, of the people who are living here, it's not representative for the number
mhm.
of people who are here, but at least it there was some change. And I know that a few people in well, from Kodo Dojo, but did a really hard time trying to look for more of these non-white children, but they were really hard to attract them. But I have the feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, but I had the feeling that once they saw that, okay, it's not just white boys, that all of a sudden they realized, okay, maybe
Yeah,
I can find a place as well. And but
it
it's
makes a difference. Yeah.
and these are all
Now,
these kind of things, we there's still tons of work to do, I think. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Now, I'm not the right person to speak about this. Well, I find all these things very important. I've never been confronted at solving that problem. I was never in that position. I'm glad I'm part of the Socrates organization, so I see it closely, what it takes to be diverse, and they are really like really repetitive in the message that they sending. Also, during the conference, it's like continuously repeating, like, yeah, watch out. Um, be respectful about pronouns. Also, well, don't use guys. Well, watch out
Yeah.
about what you say, and but they make this as a and they are standing behind that, like it's the most important thing for the organizers.
Mm. But I think it's, well, you say you're not responsible, or you're not in a sense that I understand it, but at the same time, the fact that we're having this conversation, for me, we're either part of the problem or we're part of the solution. So I don't want to
Mhm.
be part of the problem. So I need to talk about it and having this. And again, it's true.
Exactly,
It's
yes.
just two white
It's the
people,
reason.
two white men, older white men, I would even say, because we're not in our 20s talking about some of that stuff. But we realize, at least we know that we have privilege, and we know that we have to watch out for. This is why my pronouns are here. I know that in the beginning you talked about, oh, I logged in without the pronouns. We talked a little bit about it before. We think it's important to talk about that kind of stuff. And it's hard. It's hard to keep doing it. And we will. I know that for myself, I keep making some of these mistakes. um but it's, yeah, just the simple guys. So many people I have this conversation, yeah, guys is yeah, it's non-sexual, it's non-gender. It's like, yeah, okay, well, then I basically ask the question, with how many guys did you sleep, to a man, and all of a sudden they realize that it is a gendered word. Because then they feel like, oh, wait a minute, why do you even dare to ask this? Well, you just said that that word is genderless, just like people. It turns out it isn't. And of course they're mad at me because I'm bringing something up, and I'm like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
this is part of that conversation that we need to keep having.
Hmm.
It's not nice, and yes, it's a thing, and it's I really like the fact that you take your children there, because you show them, look, these are different, these are also people, and they're part of our life. And it's I like the thing that you said about your partner, just saying like, okay, what do you think about that? Well, that's nice. Okay, yeah. I have pictures of my two sons when they were how did I say it, when we started out, when they were young, that they were dancing in dresses on to some kind of yeah, children's song, and they were like, yeah, that was normal when they were like, I don't know, 2 to 4. They felt it
Hmm.
really normal. If they now look at that picture, they tell me, look, dad, hide it, nobody is allowed to see that, because yeah, they're in their teenage and whatever. But it's like, there's
Yeah,
nothing wrong when
teenage is a hard time.
yeah, but for me, it's like that was part of there, and of course, I'm not going to. Well,
Mhm.
maybe at their marriage, I will show the picture, but that kind of embarrassing things. But no, I'm joking out of it. But it's really like at the young age, children do understand that.
Yeah,
Um,
but society is not helpful. It kicks us out quite early, and it pisses me off. Also, school is not helpful in keeping like classic images. It's yeah,
yeah, I had
and
many
they
of the conversations with my daughter, and yeah,
yeah.
the fact that, and what pissed me most off is what's it, how is it called, it's a rule in kindergarten, and I'm now talking kindergarten, really talking about 2 years till 5 years old,
Hmm.
where girls were not allowed to have spaghetti straps, so they're small things like,
Oh
these are
yeah.
little children, just like, there's nothing sexual about it, this is
Come on.
insane to
All,
to
all
even
those
talk
all
about it.
those dressing rules for girls. It's like yeah. sh- you don't define dressing rules for boys. So why do you define dressing rules for girls? Really?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, so, and this is where I agree, society is really making different kind of rules for different kind of things, and we should and it really, um I have to admit, I only started reading the rules for school when my kids were older, so I didn't read it when they were in kindergarten, because like, yeah, what are things, but then of course when they go to a little bit older, and then they ask you to sign it, and they ask you, yeah, but your children have to oblige to these rules, and then I start to actually read it and realize, hey, you're doing this already for 2 years olds, because I've been signing it before, not really reading it, like
Hmm.
many things. And yeah, then I try to have a conversation with the schools, and they're just not listening. It's like, yeah, but it's the same kind of rules for every, yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's kind of insane.
Oh.
It's okay. We've been talking for a while for this book. I know you have a few others. Do you still want to talk about one of the other books, or do you say no? We've talked enough about these kind of things.
Yeah. So I find the topic important. It's the reason why I bought the book. I bought a couple
Mm.
of other books. The other topic is about racism, and one I've read recently is White Fragility.
That's
Now I've
the book
yeah, that's
from
the
Romeu.
book. Yeah. So now I remember when I announced that I bought a book. There was Romeo. It's a Brazilian living in Paris, which attends Socrates.
I know who you're
Wonderful
talking
person.
about.
he's a wonderful person. Well, he's a lot into philosophy and into art. And he's also the person that will explain you like why some agile practices are bad.
Indeed.
And he will bring lots of philosophers and to make his point. So if you have a conversation with him, just listen and shut up. But yeah, he said to me, yeah, well, there is a problem with right fragility because, well, the black community isn't too happy with that book because it's written by a white person. And I was like, oh shit, what have I done? And then I started thinking. Then I started reading the summary on the cover, and I was like, yeah, but wait, it's a white person that writes about why white people have it so difficult to speak about racism. So I think she's the right person to write about it. So at least I want to hear about it. And I'm glad I've read it. Now she's so during her career, she evolved to become a diversity coach, but she doesn't do that alone. She always do that with a person of color. And she's hired by organizations that want to do something about diversity. And so well, usually it's then a majority of white people that are present in their workshop, and then a minority of people of color. And already during these workshops, with people that attend the workshop, volunteer as a volunteer, so it's not an obligation that they need to attend these workshops. So people really interested in diversity, and yet they are making mistakes regarding language and where it offends people of color. And then she explains, and then they try to make them aware, and then there's always the same reaction, like this very protective reaction, like, yeah, but I didn't mean it like that, and my intentions weren't bad, and like really, and then they get angry, and then they start crying, and then, well, as a result, they are attracting all the attention to them where they just offended somebody, and that person doesn't get attention. And this is the whole story about white fragility, how white people, even when they are, yeah, so where it's always, well, attention is always going back to the white people, and her theory behind it is like, yeah, and as a result, it keeps racism in its place, and it creates a power structure because, well, attention goes to the white people and not to the people offended. And she made an analogy. It's like, oh yeah, it's like the driver of a car that just hit somebody walking, and everyone giving attention to the driver of the car.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I like that you bring up the book, the topic, and also the fact that it's written by a white person, because it has part of that discussion. And at the same time, I think she brings up a lot. I've read multiple books. I think about 2 years ago, I started realizing, okay, I've read a lot about the problems that women are having, and I was doing a lot of work. But then I realized, oh, there is another diversity that I try to pay attention, but I've never actually read about it. And then I think, and I want to give a shout out to Sofie Verhalle, who's actually someone who's living in our own city, Ghent, that sent out, I think, 4 or 5 books that she said, oh, Eve, if you're interested, that's another book, and that's another book. So I think I read about 4 or 5 books on anti-racism and these kind of things. And I think it's just really important to read multiple kind of things, because basically that's also how I do it about Agile. I read tons of books and I kind of mix up and find my own kind of thing. And I agree, we need to also understand from white people which is part of our problem, but of course listen also to black people about what is, how is their standpoint.
Yeah, so right now I'm reading Anti-Racism, the book,
Mhm.
which is written by a black person.
How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibrahim.
Yeah,
Is that the
yeah,
one?
yeah,
Yeah,
that one,
exactly.
yeah.
That's it's well,
Uh,
there's multiple of these kind of books. I will link to some of these books. I will link also to a list that I have on my blog about things, because I think it's really important in all kind of diversity, because basically, yes, I think, and I'm trying to look what's I have a book somewhere behind me. I don't think you can see it right now, but it's called Better Allies. And what I've learned from that book is basically everybody has lots of privilege. We have She's asking a question, this author asks about 50 questions, and many people have, like, many things that you check boxes that you say. If you're a Western white old man, then lots of other things. You went to university, so basically you already probably have 20 checks of the 50 that you can check. But women have others, and even black people have some other, if you went to university and whatever. So there's lots of
mhm.
check boxes, and somehow a little bit like what you say is that people feel offended when you show, hey, you have a privilege. No, being privileged is not a problem. It's just a fact, and we just need to realize that we have privilege. And once you realize it, we can start bringing in other people who are less privileged, and that's it. It's about realizing it and realizing what that means. The fact that we can have this conversation means that we have internet, that we have stable internet, that we have, that we don't have to work 3 jobs to keep our family alive, and all these kind of things. So the fact that we can have this conversation already shows a lot of privilege that we have. The fact that we can read books, that we can talk about many things, that we can even worry about that, because basically when you're struggling to survive, you cannot even think about these things or worry about
Yeah,
it,
indeed.
because basically you want to be alive.
Yeah, but
And
so there's this, but then there's also a lot of um, how do you say that? Well, the thinking of white people regarding people of color, like assuming that they are stupid, or they cannot be a leader, or they cannot. And this is so horrible. And well, a lot is based on history, like how race, well, how this is born, and this goes back like a couple of 100 years back with when slavery was introduced, and how this was accepted by white people with pseudoscience, and but lots of these things kept existing, like this pseudoscience, and this is
but even
painful.
even today, we know that statistically that IQ tests are favorite Western people, because of our a lot of things that are tested that is just different for other kind of
Mhm.
cultures, and in many different ways. Um and we see it, and it's for me, reading about these kind of things makes me realizing, and well, I have a technology in my house that I read about. So I have a, what's it called, the faucet. So if I put my hand below some thing, I get water, and I've automatically, and I've read that it's actually a racist system, because it doesn't work for people who don't have white skin. So and so I know this. I don't know if the particular appliance that I have in my house has this problem, but I've read so many things about it that it recognizes a hand, but it recognizes it based on white skin. So, like, Wow.
Yeah, and there you come to the why it's important to have diverse organizations, because if you had diverse organizations, you would have discovered that earlier.
Exactly. But then you realize how important thinking about it and having that discussions and
Yeah,
having all these
and
kind of things.
obviously, if you are an all-white organization, well, well, nobody will challenge that, and you're in your tunnel vision, and
Mhm. It's it's I feel well. I know that both of us we can talk for hours about these kind of topics, and they are important. So I'm really glad that you brought it up, even though it feels awkward. It feels like, okay, why
yeah,
should we talk
I
about
absolutely
it?
don't feel comfortable talking about this because, well, I don't know enough about this. I haven't taken enough notes about it to remember everything I've read, but I find it important, and I'm horrified by injustice. It's yeah.
But thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for bringing these books, because I think it's also up to us, the privileged people, to talk about these things. I don't think
Mhm.
that the black people should talk about. And yes, if they want to talk about it, it's not that they cannot, but it's really important that other people keep telling. We need. I want to keep telling the people around me, like, look, this is a privileged view that you have. This is something, and yes, we can challenge that, and we can become part of the solution, and we need to think about it. And I hope, at least with you, at least that's what I'm hearing, that for the next generations we become a little bit better. And yeah, and it still is a long way to work. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of diversity that we need to add at multiple levels. So let's work about that. Okay, I want to move to that next question about, what question do you think I should? It doesn't show yet. What's happening? Yeah, okay, there. What question do you think I should also ask you, and what's the answer?
And this was a hard one. This was a difficult one. And then I came, but it's very personal. What was defining in your life, or well, for the rest of your life?
Hmm.
And well, yeah. So what was defining, and is so I've met my wife at age 15, which is quite early.
Wow.
Yeah, it's romantic, but I had to fight to have her from age 15 till age 23.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
dedication. That's
yeah,
really like, okay, I really think that you're the person for me. So you really had to, yeah.
yeah. And then we went living together, finally, but it left a lot of scars. Well, a lot of well scars.
Scars, yes, I think that's the
Yeah.
word.
Um, well, because we had to break up with my parents-in-law.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's also one of the reasons I absolutely needed that first job, because I needed to
To
pay.
give a living, to pay for
Yeah,
your small little
yeah,
family in that
yeah.
sense.
Um,
I
and
can definitely see how that can define you as life changing.
yeah, so we didn't experience, like, yeah, usually at that age it's like you're enjoying life, and you go out and you party and you discover things. Well, no, we were worried all the time. And then you enter into young adulthood where you're still supposed to yeah, you earn money, and thanks to the money you earn, you can do nice things. Well, that wasn't for us. So I wouldn't say we were poor. So we had a living, we had a roof, but we earned just enough to live. And at the end of the month, there was no money anymore. So there's not much left for fun. It's
And it
actually
also
only
means that you didn't have any safety net if something would go
yeah,
wrong, that you really. So yeah, what I'm hearing there is that at that moment, yeah, the fear is really, yeah, there is a lot of, yeah, uncertainty, a lot of things that is like, okay, there's not much that should go wrong before we. So yeah, there's a lot of
yeah. So
anxiety that kicks
you
in.
just you don't develop a lot of confidence at that moment.
Mm.
You're surviving, and it's only when I became freelance that money was not an issue anymore. So yeah, that brings us like early 30s, and that was like a game changer. Like not having to worry about money anymore. It's like wow.
And is that permanent in a sense? I'm asking because I was talking to, and yeah, I think I know who, but I'm not 100% sure about. Somebody said, okay, I had that fear of money for something similar as what you said, and then Corona hit, and all of a sudden the fear uh, came back because she was like, oh, but now I will lose my job, and I will yeah, well, yeah, because everybody's losing their job, and is there something similar that kicked in with you, or is that?
Oh, the fear of money never went away. So it's like it's a thing that keeps following me, and it's silly, and I know that. And yet, so this constant feeling of unsafety. And it doesn't help to be happy in life. It doesn't help to be happy in life. It's very difficult to find happiness because of that. You're constantly worried.
Yeah, yeah, I've lived a few years of welfare, so I know kind of the situation you were
So,
living in.
but I've never really been poor. So, and I feel a bit bad, like saying that. Like, yeah, no, I don't have to write feeling that because I haven't been poor.
Well, if you well, that's the interesting part. What means poor? If you can't save money, you're yeah yeah. It sometimes poor looks like you don't have any money and you need to whatever. But if you don't have any money left that to save, that it's you're really very close to becoming poor. And so the worry is similar, I think. No.
Well, yeah, for you feel in a precocious situation. Well, there's not much that can go wrong. So
Yeah, but this is the part where I recognize, and again, yeah, we're living in Belgium, so when I say I lived off welfare, in a way, it's poor because you don't have much money, but at the same time, you know that in other countries you would not even receive, I would not even receive health welfare, and I would not receive healthcare and whatever, so I would really be in trouble. I didn't have that, so in a sense, it's like, yeah, I'm in Belgium, so it's much better, but that worry is there, and I think that's I think it's something that people who have not been in that situation can never even imagine
yeah,
how constant that is in your life. And I understand a lot of that. I don't have that fear anymore, but I do recognize everything that is there. I do recognize that the way I think about money has really been part of that. It's so defining.
yeah.
It's
Now, well, what is good, and if you can call it good, well, because of that, because of
Mhm.
well, you develop quite a lot of empathy. You understand quite a lot of others when they share their stories.
Mm.
But it requires, and it's a bit sad. You have to go. Well, it's a bit my analysis. You have to have. Well, you have to go through quite some bad experiences to understand others. I've
Yeah.
rarely met someone that had a easy life, being able to understand people that go through shit.
But the opposite is also true. I know some people who've been through some shit who still don't have any empathy and who didn't use that situation. So
Yeah,
in a way, you took something positive out of that. It's indeed very sad that you needed that negative to learn it, but at the same time, you could have ignored it and you didn't. So that is for me the
yeah,
good part about it, in the sense that you learned it and use it to some positive. The whole discussion we just had about diversity and all these kind of troubles, yeah, the fact that you and I, we care about it is because we've seen a lack of privilege at some part more than on the money side. So it's different, but at the same time we realize, okay, there are parts where we had lack of privilege that others had it. And I think that's the kind of thing where I think is important to take it
yeah.
on a positive
So
thing.
I've heard stories. I didn't experience it myself, but I've heard stories about people who went through shit and get out of it and were successful, and then tell others, "Well, look, I've been able to do this, so you should also be able to do this." I've heard that too, and this is not helpful. And this, yeah, they didn't learn. And it's not because you were able to do that that others are able to do that. And everyone has different contexts, and also there's maybe some sort of privilege that helped you to get out of it. I'm aware of my privilege that helped me to get out of this. One of them is I've been to university. The other one is I'm a white man, uh, and
Yeah, it is part of it, and people then think, yeah, but the other poor people. Yeah, well, wait a minute. It's there is another level on top of it.
Mhm,
If you're female, or if you're black, or if you haven't been to university, or if you blah, there's like I said, better allies if people want to learn more about all these kind of
mhm,
privileges that you have. Um, it's really important to talk about it, to share, and to say, okay, this is part. And all of us, and I'm pretty sure that everyone who has some negative parts on privileges that they don't have, they also have some parts that are privileged for other things. The thing is, can we use that part where we're non-privileged, because we all have that kind of thing, to learn and to have empathy for others? And I think that's the kind of thing, can realize it and understand why. And it's and sometimes it's a lot of luck, sometimes it's very close, about, okay, what makes the difference between me and you, and okay, having, like you said, you talked about that boss who has been a supporter for you, who has been pushing you to talk, and having the possibility to speak even if you didn't feel well. If you didn't have that boss, we probably would not have this conversation. So there is also part luck of it. There's the part of it that he pushed you at the moment that you were able to allow him to push you, because that's also part. If you would have had bad days, and if you would have reacted very negative on the first time he would have proposed, maybe he would not have continued pushing you. So there's a lot of things
mhm.
that we don't know. Thanks for sharing. We've been talking for a very long time already. I want to go to that very last question. Who do you think that I should ask next?
Yeah, I knew immediately who that was. Lisi Hocke.
That should be
Yeah,
her. If is this correct?
yeah,
Yes.
that's Lisi. She's this wonderful person. So she's from the testing community, and yeah, she has.
I've met her. Well, that's the part, the problem. I know that I've met her at the conference in 2021, so I don't remember which one anymore. But I know that I've attended a talk that she's given that I really liked, and I remember talking with her
Yeah, so
afterwards.
she has this workshop which is quite interesting, that I've attended, which is mob testing, where you test the system as well, ensemble testing. Yeah, no, it's ensemble testing, where you test a system as an ensemble, and where it's exploratory testing, and then she brings over the craft of exploratory testing. It's really good.
Thanks
And
for
well,
sharing. It looks, yeah, like I said, I've met her before, so it definitely is one of the people that is interesting to have again here, the conversation. It
yeah,
brings me
she's
also back to, yeah, a lot of other things that we talked about, Socrates, the testing community, things that, yeah, so that,
she's such an interesting person, and well, we resemble quite well. So she's a speaker, I'm a speaker. She's shy and introverted. I'm shy and introverted. So we also exchange about our coping mechanisms for public speaking, and it's well, she's lovely. Well, she's an important person in my life. So
that's, well, what else do I need to talk about it? That's the kind of thing that I want. I want to really have people proposing other people who they think are interesting to talk to. So Thierry, well, I said it was the last question, but if people want to reach out to you, what would be a good way to connect with you?
oof, well, yeah. So I'm on Mastodon. I'm still on Twitter, but don't really use it that much
I didn't
anymore.
prepare anything about Twitter because, yeah, these days we're recording in March, and yeah, it's really, it's interesting where it's going. Like you say, I'm still on it, but what's happening? It's, yeah.
I don't go that much anymore there. I'm also on LinkedIn, but yeah, well, I have people that send me messages on LinkedIn, and that seems the
So
go-to place.
that's
Yeah,
the go-to place, I think. And then
and then I have people that find my email address on my website, and they send me. Yeah,
that's your website, huh? If I'm correct. So
that's my
there,
website, where well, occasionally I publish an article, and then I have people that send me an email, and I make it an honor to reply everyone, also direct messages on Twitter or on LinkedIn. But I realize that lately I'm not that good anymore at that, because I've committed to too many things, and I'm involved in too many things, where so my space is quite limited, and so it can happen
can
that
go
it's
through.
well, that a couple of weeks goes over, and I should make it a habit to immediately reply. Look, I've received your email. I'm going to reply you. I don't know when, but yeah, I have this stupid reaction. Like I'm freaking out. Oh, people are sending me an email to me. uh, and then I don't know what to do about it, and it's so silly.
You could have set up an automatic reply, but it feels indeed very strange to do that on a
I have
personal
done
email
that
address.
after I've read the 4-hour week where he suggests that. I've done that, but then I stopped because it feels like really
Yeah,
impersonal.
I get that. It's yeah, I try to answer very quickly, but it's really hard, and it's yeah, sometimes things get dropped. For so it's hard.
Well,
But at the same time, it shows
I'll,
also that you care because it shows that you want to give a good reply.
well,
I
that's the thing. So I want to take the time to reply, and then I never find the time, and because I find it important to take the time for each and every one because they've taken the time to send me an email. So the least I can do is to return the favor back, and but then well, and then I feel a horrible person.
And again, I think many people will recognize that that's the kind of thing like you want to do a good thing and take that time. And yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's yeah, I've received an email, I think last week about someone for this talk that for this show that says, well, look, Eve, like, sorry, I haven't replied in like a long time, and but I'm really interested, but my life is going to shit about multiple kind of things. This is a person that is moving, I think, even countries or continents. So this is a person really, the whole life is everything's moving. It's like, well, you don't need to apologize. You send me a message, that's fine. Contact me again when your life is again a little bit more stable. I think we had a similar kind of conversation where you said, I'm interested, I'm not sure if I want to be here. Let me think a little bit. And I said, okay, let's take some time and let's see if you're interested. And well, I think we're about 3 hours later, and I do think we have a good conversation. So I think we can say that it was interesting. At least it felt to me. So yeah, this is also part of how life is these days. Once you get to a point in your I don't know if it's age or if it's becoming, I don't know, more known, but we get a lot of more requests, and yeah, then it's harder to reply because you want to take the time off. I'm just happy that I'm not super duper famous receiving 1 million emails a day or whatever. I would feel
Yeah, I
so
don't have that, you know.
no, but could you just imagine? I don't know, a Madonna or whatever that basically you need a whole department to answer emails for that kind of thing. Yeah, would feel so unnatural, and at the same time, there's nothing else that these people can do because yeah, if
Yeah,
you
of
want to
course.
reply, so that's the kind of thing, and I
Take it.
think we're not at that nearly at that level, but at the same time we sometimes get more requests than we can do, and yeah, I'm not going to hire a personal assistant to answer emails. I'm not at that level, and maybe I should. Maybe it should give me a lot of peace, but it feels for me at least similar to what you say. I want to take that time. I want to give a personal attention to people. Yeah, it is what is life, but this is also why, for example, the original invitation, so the person that you just invited, but some other people, I will send that first email is a scripted email. It will be the full text, because if I don't do it, I will forget the first, I don't know, the first 30 people I invited. That was always a personal message, and then I forgot this and I forgot that, and said, no, stop it. I write it once, I keep improving it, and I keep versioning it in that sense. And okay, the beginning is okay, Lisi and whatever, and okay, Thierry invited you, so there's still a few sentences that are personal, but everything else is scripted
Mhm.
to avoid that kind of thing. Is also part of life, I think.
Yeah. So also one thing I'm trying to develop is like when people reach out to me with questions, I try to take the opportunity to turn that into an article, but obviously it takes longer. um,
That's a very great tip. Okay, like you say, it takes longer, but at the same time, you can point multiple people to it. Because
Yeah.
like, well, I don't know what's the reasoning behind you, but my personal reason for doing that would be, oh, if one person reaches out to me, that probably is a representative for 10 people that didn't reach
Well,
out
that
to
is
me.
it, and also because I find myself repeating often the same things.
Hmm.
Now, it's not an idea from myself. I got it from Scott Hanselman,
Hmm.
who does that.
Gets a lot more emails than both of us, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And so I did it. I did it recently. So my last article is exactly that. It's an answer to someone who so I wrote a couple of articles on the practices that make continuous integration, and then I've recently published a schema that summarizes all the practices. And upon that, someone reacted like, "Yeah, but I think that if we use a pull request with an automated build inside the pull request without necessarily doing a code review, well, we don't need the agree as a team to never break the build." And I was like, yeah, well, yeah, maybe not. And then I wrote an article like, yeah, why the pull request cannot supersede agree as a team to not break the build. And then
Hmm.
I write down my arguments. Um, and
So I will link to the article because indeed I think it's one. Yeah, but it's again, it's one of these things that people need to think much harder. You've been really vocal about having, yeah, about okay, let's this is what we want to do, no feature branches and all that kind of things, which is a discussion that I think I had like 20 years ago in okay, before we had GitHub that made it so much easier to do all these kind of branching strategies, but still the arguments stay for
mhm,
most of the
indeed,
developers, I would say. um,
indeed, yeah.
okay, let's thanks for bringing that back to that conversation because that's something. It's actually very interesting that we didn't. I was kind of expecting to have a much more technical conversation. I'm not surprised we didn't, but at the same time, it's like yeah, that was kind of what I thought that could go. So it went in all kind of directions. I really want
Well,
to thank you.
I wanted to avoid the technical conversation. Yeah.
Well, it's
And also wanted to avoid the questions about the topics I'm usually talking about, to
well,
just
you
shed another
definitely
light.
you
Yeah,
succeeded in that and it made it a very rich conversation, I think.
thank you.
It's almost midnight here
Yeah,
in
wow.
both of our locations, so when I see that everybody from my family already went to bed, so this is probably going to be the longest conversation that I've published, but I'm okay with that. It's yeah, like I said earlier on, I really like when conversations surprise me. So it's I'm really happy. So I hope you're as happy as I am,
I
and
enjoyed it. Yeah,
I hope to actually run into you whatever and some moments because this is very interesting. Like I showed in the beginning, we don't live that far away from each other, and at the same time I think we only run it into each other at conferences, and I think I wouldn't be surprised that the last time I saw you, physically saw you, was even in another country because that's how what is.
I
uh,
don't even remember.
uh yeah, that's the hard part for me. Everything since COVID, it's like
Last one was GitCon.
that is probably, and then it still is in Ghent, so that's possible as well. So that is possible as well. Well, thank you very much for your time. I will let you know at the moment that it will be published. I don't know. I should have prepared that to tell you, but I don't know. But anyway, I will let you know at the moment that is published, and I wish you a very wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of Agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.